Good morning, colleagues. Just checking in terms of our members. I can see Honorable Chinga, Honorable De Boer, Honorable De Klerk, Honorable Kaula, Honorable Cele, Honorable Band Prakash, Honorable Kulu. As members, you are all welcome to this briefing by the Office of the Auditor General, as well as a briefing by the Provincial Audit and Risk Committee on the performance of entities that fall under the Department of Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs. Today we will be meeting with 4 of the entities who have issues in terms of their audit reports, and that is what the briefing will cover. So we'd also like to welcome representatives from Treasury as well as from the Office of the Auditor General who are with us, and any others who might be here as well. The entities we are covering today are Ezemvelo KZN Wildlife, KZN Tourism, Ithala SOC, and Ithala IDFC, Ithala Development Finance Corporation. I think the agenda is there in front, opening and welcome. Cabo, do we have any apologies?
Yes, ma'am. We have an apology from Honorable Rogers. He says he's in ethics committee or committee, but as soon as he's done, then he'll join.
Okay, fine. So there's one apology, but nevertheless, even in terms of this briefing, we are actually correct. I think without further ado, let's hand over to the Office of the Auditor General to do the presentation. Colleagues, you'll find that the AG's report on the entities is included in the briefing on the Edtea, their report on the Edtea briefing. Thank you. Who's going to be flighting this presentation? We're only focusing on the entities, hey? Kabo, who from the AG's office is doing the presentation on the Edtea entities? Winile. Okay, fine. You can proceed.
Thank you, Chair. I hope that you can hear me. My name is Martin Coates. I'm the SM in the KZN Business Unit that assisted with the Economic Development Department audit. It was a portfolio of entities included in this presentation.
Martin, you're visible. Can you just briefly show your face and then you can switch your camera off? Thank you. You can switch the camera off now.
Chair, if I may, I'm going to share the presentation from my side. I think it will just be easier in terms of directing it, if I may.
That's fine.
So, Chair, in terms of the audits, the purpose of this presentation, and greetings to yourself, all protocols observed, and to all the members of the committee. And thank you for this opportunity to table the outcomes, and just to confirm the outcomes for the department, as well as the entities within the portfolio. Greeting to the relevant entities that are also present in the meeting. In terms of the presentation, Chair, I'm not going to go into every slide, maybe just to highlight some of the areas for the attention of the committee. It was a similar presentation which we tabled with the MEC, and has been adapted to this audience. In terms of the relevant slides, there's a slide on our mission and vision, which I won't go into, the culture shift strategy, which I can go into more detail, but I believe you may have become familiar with this strategy of ours, and which takes us to 2030 from an AG perspective. In terms of maybe to start off with the accountability ecosystem from the respect of the department. So we looked at the various role players within the department, and in terms of the accounting officer and senior management, we do commend them in paragraph 3 of this presentation with an audit of the department that was unqualified with no findings for the year ended, which indicates that the control environment is strong in the key areas that are within scope of our audit. And we do highlight that there were material misstatements identified in the annual performance report, which was subsequently corrected. And these did not result in findings on the audit report, but we just highlight here that there are some improvements despite the unqualified audit in the area of the quality of the annual performance report. And then also paragraph 5, we just highlight that in respect of the Operation Vula Fund program, the outcome of the conclusion of the audit also confirmed that the spending in relation to the program from an independent development trust perspective, one of the agents in terms of the procurement, this was identified as a regular expenditure, and that has been disclosed in the annual report. In terms of the audit committee, we had nothing to highlight, believing that it did assistance oversight role as well as the internal audit unit. This slide just highlights that there were no material findings in the various areas of the audit, whether it be the financial statements, annual performance report, where we selected program 3 and program 7, compliance with legislation as well. And that's been a consistent outcome for the last 3 years. There were no material misstatements identified in the financial statements as well, which also indicates that the risk of this area is low. You would still get an unqualified finding, a qualified report, even if you did have material misstatements, although it could affect your compliance in terms of the presentation of the financial statements, and there were no material misstatements identified after the submission of the financial statements for audit. In terms of the procurement and contract management, we do commend management for improvement in this area. In terms of the yellows and the prior years, that just reflects findings, not necessarily material findings, which would be reflected with a red colour to indicate as such. So in terms of the various components of our procurement and contract management audit, there were no material findings. In terms of irregular expenditure, we highlight the profile or trend of irregular expenditure on an annual basis over the last 4 years. In respect of, maybe just to highlight that the 37.7 million. Yes,
Martin, sorry. Can you go straight to the entities? The department has received a clean audit, so members can
sure,
go.
No, that's fine, Chair.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the Ithala Stock Limited audit. That wasn't a clean audit, was unqualified with findings in respect of strategic planning and performance management, as well as expenditure management. And that was because of in respect of strategic management. There were issues with the final approval of the shareholders' compact that it had with Ithala Development Finance Corporation. And in respect of expenditure management, while their regular expenditure levels are coming down, there is still that compliance finding for non-prevention of irregular expenditure on new contracts. So there's still some improvements, but there is signs or visible signs of improvements. In terms of Ithala Development Finance Corporation, there was a finding on the quality of the financial statements. We did identify material errors on the financial statements after submission, and that's been a consistent theme over the last 3 years. We have indicated recommendation, Chair, but those are similar to prior years as well. Moses Kortani, there is nothing to report. In terms of KZN Trade Investment, there was nothing to report there. In terms of KZN Tourism Authority, we had findings on expenditure management as well as procurement and contract management. KZN Sharks Board was a clean audit again this year, as well as Dube Transport and Growth Fund. There is nothing to report. I'm going to come back to Ezemvelo. I'm going to hand over to Adele Howard to take us through these slides, but I'll just finish in terms of the other ones, Chair. Liquor Authority, there was nothing to report. Film Commission as well, and Richards Bay. So I'll hand over to Adele, Chair, to finalise with Ezemvelo.
Thanks, Martin. Colleagues, you can just hold your questions until all the presentations have been done. Adele?
Thank you, Honourable Chair, and good day to yourself as well as the honourable members. I am Adele Howard, the Senior Manager responsible for the audit of KZN Nature Conservation Board. As you will see, in the current year, unfortunately, there was a regression in audit outcome in that they received a qualified audit opinion, and that was on the property, plant and equipment. The main issue there is that a lot of the assets were damaged and scrapped, and they did not process an impairment. Other issues were assets that could not be found on the ground, even though we went with the officials to locate these assets. Then the other qualification was with regard to the irregular expenditure. Unfortunately, management did not conduct a proper exercise to determine the full extent of the irregular expenditure incurred during the 2022-23 financial year. So that's why they were qualified on that item. Then if you look at the annual performance report, they have been qualified opinion again on the, or should I say qualified conclusion on the annual performance report, and that is consistent with the previous year. Under compliance with legislation, your non-compliance is, of course, with regard to the annual financial statements, because it was a qualified opinion. Under revenue management, there were no material findings. Under expenditure management and procurement and contract management, unfortunately, there were material findings again, and that is consistent with the past 3 years. If we move on to the next slide, we just go into a little bit more detail on the procurement and contract management findings, and just to show you the nature of the findings. So there were no audit limitations, which was a good thing. However, there were material findings on deviations, material findings on non-compliance with the competitive bidding process, as well as non-compliance with the quotations process. There were findings also on conflict of interest and contract management, but those were not material enough to be elevated to the audit report. The next slide is just dealing with the overall root causes and some of our recommendations. And really the root causes, inadequate action plans to address both internal audit and external audit findings. There were also a number of vacancies within the organization, and there's a challenge in terms of implementing any recommendations that have been identified by both internal audit and external audit. And there needs to be more rigorous monitoring in terms of the internal processes. So it was lack of adequate oversight over the preparation of the annual financial statements, the annual performance report, and compliance. And just also to indicate that this is not the first time that the auditee has had challenges with property, plants, and equipment over the years. So even the previous year, there were findings on property, plants, and equipment, but they were not material enough for the audit report. So what seems to have happened is that these findings became more severe, and they ended up being material in this financial year, which resulted in the overall regression. Thank you.
Thanks, Adele. Colleagues are now open to you for questions and comments, questions of clarity. Other issues I think you can direct to the entities themselves. But what I want to say is that I think Ezemvelo is of great concern, and we should spend quite a bit of time just clarifying what is going on there. And we should also, when looking at the entities, also raise the issue of the licenses, the banking license for Ithala SOC, because I think that's an ongoing thing, as well as the rationalization of entities when we're talking about Ezemvelo, because Ezemvelo is supposed to be merged or in terms of the rationalization process with the KZN Sharks board. There's supposed to be a draft bill, but we have no idea what's going on. So over to you, colleagues, by show of hands, please. Give me a moment. I'm just trying to get this. Okay, fine. Welcome, Honorable Rogers. I see somebody told you you didn't need to be on ethics. It's fine. So you are our first.
Thanks,
first speaker.
Thanks very much, Chair. Good morning, colleagues. Perhaps you'd like to take Mike Tarr first, because he might give some information which may even answer some of my questions. Thanks, Chair.
Yes, sorry, my apologies. What's going on here?
Can I start, Chair?
Yes, please, Mike. Sorry, Mike, my mistake. Let's take the briefing from the Provincial Audit and Risk Committee and then go into questions. Apologies, everyone.
Thank you.
You can start, Mike.
Thank you, Chair. Greetings, Chair. Greetings, Francois. Chair, I just have one concern at this stage, and that relates to repeat audit findings. You know, obviously audit findings should be dealt with, and once they repeat, then obviously someone's doing nothing about it. Perhaps someone could comment on the extent to which the department has problems with filling of vacant posts, which might be a part of the problem they have in dealing with these various audit findings. So this really is around vacancies. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Mike. So are we dealing with the entities across the board with the ones we're interviewing? Because Ithala SOC and IDFC, I don't think have the issues, but with KZN Tourism and with Ezemvelo. Okay, thank you. Let's just go back to colleagues raising, wanting to ask any questions or issues. Can I just, again, I can see the hand of Francois, which I've recognized. Is there anybody else?
Slalo, I'm sorry, I'm not sure it's my gadget, but it will also be Honorable Kulu as well.
Yes, Chair, and Kaula.
Okay, fine. So let's do it in that order. We'll take Honorable Rogers, Honorable Kaula, Honorable Kulu. Thank you. Let's proceed, members.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, my questions are around Ezemvelo, and it just doesn't improve. I mean, I think this is the end of my 10th year, and we just seem to not be able to get it right. Now, I think back to our engagement with education yesterday, where there were certain comments made about internal audits not being around, although Treasury then did say that they assist education. I don't know if there's anyone from Treasury on this platform now, but is Treasury in any way giving Ezemvelo assistance to try and turn the situation around? Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Honourable Rogers. Honourable Kaula.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson. Greetings to yourself and to the honourable members and all the colleagues in the meeting. Chair, I'm also on Ezemvelo. I just want to find out the issue that the assets are on register, but on the ground they cannot be verified. Does this relate or doesn't it relate to corruption? That you have got assets that are supposed to be there, but when you go on the ground, you cannot find them. Is there a correlation between this and corruption or fraud? Thank you.
Thanks, Honourable Kaula. I think, apart from assets that are not on the ground, the other issue that was raised, and I think we need to raise it when we meet them as well, is them not recording, assets that have degenerated, etc., and they supposedly have written off. Honourable Kulu.
Thank you, Chair. Greetings to honourable members and also to my colleague, Ithala. Chairperson, I think maybe honourable members have covered just a bit on my issues. On the repeated findings, now mine will be then, what is the consequence management? Is it there? Because if these things are being done in like 2 financial years a row and nothing has been done, what is our next step in this situation? Also, as Honourable Kaula have just said on the issue of the asset not being registered, I honestly believe that something has to be done urgently on this, because by look of things, whatever finding that you pick it up now, it's look like we're going to find them again in the next financial year if nothing has been done.
Thanks, Honourable Kulu. I think some of these issues we will raise with the entity, but let's get feedback both from the Office of the AG, whatever they've got, and if there's anything that the Provincial Audit and Risk want to add in. Thanks. We'll start with Edtea and your team.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. So in terms of Ezemvelo, the first question was, is Treasury giving assistance to turn them around? I'm not currently aware of any assistance from Treasury. And just to note that at Ezemvelo, they actually have their own internal audit unit in their staff establishment. In terms of the assets not found and whether that's corruption, difficult question to answer, but just to share that, there were existing policies and procedures within the organization that were not followed. And as part of management's action plan, they're now beefing up those policies and arranging training of all the relevant officials to ensure that asset management processes do improve. In terms of repeat findings, there needs to be consequences management. I think that's all I can say, Honourable Chairperson. Thank you.
Thanks, Edtea. I saw Martin's hand up as well.
No, thank you, Chair. Yes, I was going to talk to Mr. Tar and Honourable Zulu's comments about repeat findings. In terms of that some of the entities like the Ithalas where you have repeat findings, the IDFC, they've got quite a technical complex accounting framework, and there's some transactions in there. We've recommended they get specialist expertise to assist on a full-time basis. They have, I would say, debated as a diplomatic way of saying it with us that they have done the appropriate measures, but it seems to be a recurring issue. There is a new CFO that has come on board. There was an acting CFO. So I have more optimism in terms of the way forward, that the audit committee is also on the same page. But in terms of the actual implementation of that, I haven't seen it in terms of avoiding those repeat findings. And then with Ithala SOC, I think the entity can talk to that. They have put in measures, but they can explain that a bit further.
Thanks, Martin. Honourable Kaula, I see your hand, so I think it's follow-up.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. No, I'm not happy with the response, Chair. But I want to come back to the Honourable Chairperson and say I want to leave this at the doorstep of the Chairperson. You see, we cannot have a situation where assets are appear on register, but when people go on the ground, they can't find them. I think as a committee, we need to do something. It wasn't us. Maybe as a committee, we need to verify this ourselves. If we can get a list of these projects and we do our own verification. This thing happens a lot where people just escape scot-free. For me, this is an easy way out. It can't be. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Honourable Kaula. Remember also, we don't, I think the chairperson of the portfolio committee is here. We cannot also step onto the work of the portfolio committee, but we'll talk about it. Honourable Rogers?
Thanks, Chair. I want to agree with Honourable Kaula. I mean, it's year in and year out that we face this. It's not like it's an outlier. So my question is, if we're going to change the situation, is there anything in the PFMA or Treasury regulations that would allow an entity of this nature to be placed under administration to actually get it back on the right track? I'm just trying to think out of the box. I'm not sure if anyone has an answer to that question, but we cannot be doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Honourable Rogers. If colleagues looked at the audit report, one of the issues that has been raised very starkly is the ability of Ezemvelo, because I take it we are, focusing on Ezemvelo now, to be a going concern. And it's being, flagged very seriously about whether this entity can actually survive. I'm also concerned, colleagues, that, there is a proposal, a draft bill about rationalization, whether this entity is going to pull KZN Sharks Board down. Remember, KZN Sharks Board performs very well, has a clean audit, is well run. And, the merging of the two might well be to the detriment of the work of the Sharks Board also. Chairperson, let me just welcome the chairperson of Edtea, Honourable Ntombela, who is with us as well. You are welcome, as well as other members, to come in. But I think some of these issues we'll have to raise when the entity is present. Is there anyone from Treasury here? I see Madhavi Bao is here. Do you want to make any comment?
Good morning, Chair, morning members. I think I can only comment from an internal audit perspective, but just to confirm what Adele had indicated, as Provincial Treasury, we don't support Ezemvelo because it's a public entity. They do have their own internal audit unit. Chair, I'm not in a position to comment on whether there's any other support that's being provided by Treasury, but it is something that we can follow up on. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, obviously this is not all right. Colleagues, look, I agree fully with the sentiments that you're expressing, that we've had numerous engagements with Ezemvelo, and really, we at some point said this is supposed to be the jewel in the crown of KZN, etc. But I don't know. Honourable Mshengo, Chairperson of Environmental Affairs and Tourism, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. Good morning, and I wish to apologize for coming in a bit late. I was held up in another meeting, of which I thought it was going to last for a shorter period. However, I just want to join other members. The audit outcome in relation to Ezemvelo is also very disheartening to us as members of the portfolio committee. of which the entity reports to. I would suggest perhaps through you, Honorable Chair, that the sentiments that probably even the rationalization process might actually not be an outcome that is desirable, even in terms of the Sharks Board. However, I'm aware that there is a process now of recruiting a new CEO. They've just appointed a new CFO now. And I think the even though the process is slow, but at least to have a firm, accountable, stable leadership, because there's been a serious problem of accountability in that entity that we have been crying out for more than 2 or so years now. But perhaps if we were to have a joint between Scopa and ourselves, and call this entity before us, so that all these errors that were raised by the Auditor General are clarified in person, so that we are in a position, because these are repetitive matters that have been raised year in and year out. And as I sit in this meeting, I'm not too sure what more can we do, because we have done everything and anything possible to support this entity and the board. And still there's still of audit outcomes. It's a matter that I'm suggesting perhaps that it's an entity that belongs to the people of KwaZulu-Natal. We can't just throw it away. All that we have to do is to put all our combined efforts and try and rescue it from sinking. Thank you.
Thanks, Honorable Mshengu. Kabo, I hope you are noting, because I agree that there should be a joint meeting of the portfolio committees with the entity, particularly now there's a new CFO. We don't want the bad habits to get into the new CFO. I can see Mr. Eric Root, our legal advisor, the legislature legal advisor, is here. I'm not sure, Eric, whether you can give us any insight, or whether you'd require some time about, options. Like, Honorable Rogers has raised the issue of administration, the advisability of proceeding with rationalization, which might negatively impact on an entity that is well performing, which is the Sharks Board, etc. Do you want to just make any comment, Eric, or would you want to wait and come back to us with a detailed kind of response?
Chair, thank you. Good morning to you and to all members, honourable members. I think at this stage I would just like to briefly comment, and I would propose that I draft a suitable resolution. The first thing is the PFMA is very clear, section 51 specifically, that the responsibility for making sure that the affairs of an entity are in order rests on the accounting authority, which in this case is the board, the Nature Conservation Board. And they must ensure that the entity takes disciplinary steps for any contraventions, or there's a whole list of things undermining the financial management of the entity and permitting irregular expenditure and so on. And then there's a further provision in section 51 which says, if the accounting authority is unable to comply with any of its responsibilities, including the ones I've just mentioned, then they must report that inability to the relevant executive authority. And then if I jump to section 63 of the PFMA, 63(2) specifically, which places the responsibility squarely on the executive authority to ensure that the public entity complies with the Act and the financial policies of the executive. So I'm not aware of, and I couldn't, in the brief time that I had, really find anything about placing it under administration. But certainly I think we should take a strong resolution calling upon the MEC to report to Scopa on well, first of all, the board. I don't think we can just skip the board. We must give them an opportunity to report on what they intend doing about this. And failing any action on the part of the board, the matter should be referred to the MEC. But I will need a bit of time to Chair just to draft a suitable resolution, but it will be along those lines I propose. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. I think that will assist us because right now, we are obviously, kind of like we're in a bit of a, I won't say a panic, but a quandary about what to do because this has been going on for so long. I think I must just be also refreshed about what's going on in the, the officials. I think there was a new secondment, Mr. Mkhize. No, there's no permanent CEO, isn't it? Or has there now been a CEO? I know the CFO now you've got somebody new appointed, but the CEO it's still an acting. We can just
if I were to come in, Chair, yes, is acting. I think there is an advert now out for a permanent CEO.
Yeah, because this Mr. Mkhize, as my understanding goes, was appointed, seconded in September 2022. So we gone a year with an acting CEO, right? There was no CFO, there was the acting CFO. So now the CFO is appointed, but the CEO that position is still, there's still an acting. So I think, that's also part of the issues that we have. But let me just hand over to Honourable de Klerk. Honourable de Klerk, is your hand up? No. Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Right. Okay.
I'm just looking, if I'm not mistaken, state-owned entities can definitely be placed under administration. I remember PRASA that was at some stage in 2020 or so under administration. So it is possible, I think, in the sense that they can be under administration. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, let's get the if you can liaise with Eric as well, but let's get that opinion from Eric because that is an option that might be there. Obviously, in engagement as Honourable Mshengo has suggested, the Joint Portfolio Committee, where we would be able to, look at and also discuss options. I see the hand of Mr. Zulu and then Mike Ta in that order, please.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, honourable members. Morning, Mike, my colleague. You see, listening to what is being discussed right now, but firstly, let me start by congratulating Edtea itself for getting clean audit. But move on to say Edtea is a shareholder to Ezemvelo. In fact, the Ezemvelo reports to Edtea. I think it will be proper if we get a full understanding of what is going on at Ezemvelo from Edtea itself. Yes, we have raised it with the head of department ourselves because we're concerned. In particular, Mike raised it sharply in our committee to say we seem to have problems in some of the entities in terms of their accountability and what is going on there. We are not part of the we are not part of the oversight committee that we play in that in those entities, but we are concerned if the department itself will get a clean audit, but some of the entities get what they've got now, like Ezemvelo. We will recommend that because after our discussion, he raised some concerns, the head of department, and he indicated the actions that he has taken to ensure that at least they account for the money that gets to be given to them and for the work that they are doing. If maybe we can give him, when we get time, when they come to the session where they will be present, to understand what is going on. And also I'll be happy if the chairperson of their audit committee will be part of that meeting, so that from his side, as a senior person whom internal audit reports to, will be able to identify areas that have been raised by their own internal audit in terms of the performance of this organization. If we can get all these two people I think we can get clarity, and it will help even the legislature itself, whoever will recommend whatever recommendation, either administration or whatever, but it will be informed, that recommendation, by what is going on on the ground. Thank you so much.
Thanks for those suggestions, Mr. Zulu. We'll note them. Remember that this hearing, we invited Ezemvelo through the department, and the responsibility is with them to ensure that they bring people who can answer. But should those people not be present, we will ask that they be called to the meeting. Fortunately, it's virtual, so it should not be an issue. Mike Tar?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'd like to agree with Ogeba, our Chair of Park. But Chair, you know, as far as Park is concerned, we do not audit Ezemvelo. All we see is the department make a transfer payment, and that is about it. But in reality, Chair, the Ezemvelo board, they report to the department and the MEC. And I actually would like to agree with Eric Ruet that the MEC should be involved in this matter through the department or the HOD to actually respond to some of the matters we have. Chair, I'm aware just through discussions and that Ezemvelo is not what it should be, and I think it behoves us to try and assist to put matters right. But I think that Eric Ruet's direction in taking this direct to MEC, and he can demand answers from the board because they must report to him. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Mike. Honourable de Klerk, is your hand up for a second? Or is it a legacy hand? Honourable de Klerk?
Oh, sorry, it's a legacy hand, sorry.
Okay, all right. Look, colleagues, I think we, obviously all of us are very concerned and frustrated about what is going on. And I've made a note, and I know Kaba is noting some of the things, which we obviously will not raise with the department. The issue of administration, those kinds of things are separate. But, and our legal advisor is going to be looking at what we can formulate as Scopa. Fortunately, we have the chairs of both Edtea and Environmental Affairs, Conservation and Environmental Affairs here. So that joint meeting, I think, between the two committees we'll have to set up. And I'm hearing what Mike Tai is talking about, of getting the MEC and the HOD involved. And I think that perhaps to such a meeting, we should invite them as well. Okay, so those are some of the things. I'm not sure who is going to be present at this meeting from the Ezemvelo board, because it's a fairly newly appointed board, if I'm correct. You know, and hopefully they have been informed and that they are here. But again, if they are not here, I think I'm going to ask our administration. Kabo, if you can just check. I know Honourable Johnson was appointed as the chair, and the deputy chair was Ian Ewing. Perhaps we can just try and see if we can get hold of them at least to be present at the hearing. I think it would assist us because they can log in. It's a matter of sharing login details.
Sorry to intervene, ma'am.
Who is
yes,
that?
With the,
yes.
Yes, with the board, yes, we invited the board. However, we are not sure who's coming, but specifically even the chair of all the boards should be here. Unless, if not, the chair is unavailable and he sends somebody to act on his behalf. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. All right, but we'll establish whether they were informed. Well, so did we inform them or did we leave it to the department to do so? Kabo?
Ma'am?
Did we inform them or was it the department that was supposed to do so? It's normally through the department, isn't it? Okay, let's leave that. Okay, colleagues, I think with the Ezemvelo, let's, we have all the issues. We'll raise it with them when they come. Let's look at the other three entities as well, if there are any issues. I know with the Ithala SOC, it's the issue of the banking license that we have to to raise to find out where they are with that. And I think the issue of the going concern, they have a lot of debt. I think they have the debt, I'm not sure now. And then TKZN, Tourism KZN, although they have an unqualified audit, the issues are small, very small. And IDFC, the issues around there, they are, it's IDFC where there's the going concern issues. Okay, colleagues? Welcome, Kabiso. I can see you are here with us today as well. Any other issues, colleagues?
For me, Chair, I think you've covered me well. It's Honorable Tele. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Then what I'll suggest we do is let's wait. Let's let the admin just do the follow-up to try and get these people, the ones we want, to the meeting, because I'm just a bit concerned. Sometimes, things fall through the cracks, and then we might not have people that we require here. It's 11:45, colleagues, and we are due to see them at Cabo 12.
It is half 12, ma'am.
Oh, half 12.
Yes.
So we have quite a bit of time. Okay, colleagues, let's adjourn and come back at let's come back at 12:20. In the meantime, can I request our administration just to follow up so that these board members in particular are present? They are the, part of the accounting authority of the entities, and we need them present. Okay, and maybe chase up with, I know it's a cabinet day, but if you can also chase up with the HOD of Edtea, at least send a message to see whether they can log in. Colleagues, we'd set this meeting later because of the cabinet meeting. Our briefings were early, but we'd actually scheduled 12:30 onwards so that, people, possibly cabinet could have been over or people could have been released. Okay, so can we then reconvene at 12:20? Colleagues?
Yeah, that's fine, Chairperson. Thank you.
Siyathokoza.
Okay, fine. All right. See you all then. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Chair.
Hi, Nandi.
Yes, Chair.
Well, you are a Nandi person anyway.
Indeed, I am an NDA.
They prefer the Bay areas of the Western Cape, while
I don't. Kabo?
Ma'am?
Who do we have from Ezemvelo, Kabo?
Let me check.
I'm here. My name is Nonhlanhla Khumalo, the CFO of KZN Ezemvelo.
Ah, Ms. Kumalo. Okay, welcome. Anybody else from Ezemvelo here? Your board?
My board should be joining soon, and my CEO should also be joining. May I ask that they be given a few minutes? Thanks.
Yeah, sure. We'll do that. In the meantime, Kabo, you can just beam up the agenda.
I'm also muted.
Kabo, you'll indicate to us, or Nonhlanhla, if you'll indicate to us when the CEO and the board chairperson are here, we can commence.
I'll do that.
Oh,
I can see the CEO is here.
greetings, Chair. Greetings to you and greetings to the members. I can confirm that I've joined the meeting. I have also, we are joined by Mr. Loginaidu, who is standing in for the chairperson of the board, who has a medical appointment today. She has tendered her apology for this meeting. We are also joined by the chair of the Audit and Risk Committee. And Chair, also let me formally introduce our new CFO, Mrs. Nonhlanhla Khumalo, who joined us on the 1st of June this year. And myself, Sehlem Kiza, was the acting CEO. Thanks, Chair. We are here and we are ready to start.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mkize. Then we will commence. The agenda is in front of us, colleagues. The opening and welcome. Let me just take the opportunity to welcome everyone to this hearing of entities of the Department of Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs, and to the specific focus being on their audit outcomes. We have invited several entities today, and the first entity to be heard will be the Ezemvelo KZN Wildlife. We have with us, and let me also welcome the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs. On Economic Development, we have the chair of the Portfolio Committee on Environmental Conservation and Tourism, and we also have members of that Portfolio Committee. Amongst us as well are members of Scopa. I chair Scopa. We have Honorable Rogers. We have Honorable Tele. We have Honorable Kaula. Honorable de Klerk is there with us. Honorable Shinga. And other members, Honorable Mchali, Honorable Kulu, and I think other members of the committee who I may have omitted. There are also members of the Portfolio Committee present, and we have amongst us the support staff from the legislature, including our legal advisors and other staff. We have representatives of the Office of the Auditor General who are with us as well, and members of the Provincial Audit and Risk Committee who are also with us. So there is a full complement that is here. The next item is attendance and apologies. I hear what the CEO of Ezemvelo tells us about the chairperson's apology, and we welcome Mr. Naidu, who is standing in for the chair. Are there any other apologies that we have?
From my side, ma'am, no other apologies, ma'am.
Thanks, Kabo. Then we can go on to constitution of the meeting. Kabo, you can just confirm with me, we are cooperating quite comfortably, I think.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So then can I have someone to move for adoption of the agenda and a seconder, please?
Propose the adoption of the agenda, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Rogers. And a seconder, please.
Honourable Tele seconds, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Tele. Then we go to item 4. Now we have with us the CEO of Ezemvelo KZN Wildlife. So we would want you to take an oath or affirmation together with any other of your officials who will be speaking in the meeting. So you will lead, And the oath or affirmation is as follows. I, and then you give your name, do hereby either swear or affirm, whatever the case, to speak the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. If you are swearing an oath, then it's so help me God. If it's an affirmation, I do hereby affirm. So before we do anything else, let me start with you, CEO, to take the oath or affirmation, and you can pass us on to other members, other officials who are going to speak and who will need to take the oath or affirmation. The reason for this, as you know, is to hold you, because we are a legislature, to hold you to account and to have you speaking the truth under oath. So let's start with you, CEO.
I, Sepesihle Mkhize, hereby swear to tell the truth and the only truth, and so help me God. Can I ask the CFO to follow me?
Yes, please.
I, Nhlanhla Khumalo, hereby swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who will be speaking, or is it the two of you? We don't require the board to take an oath or affirmation. They will speak.
No, Chair, it will mainly be the two of us. Thank you.
Okay, fine. Then without further ado, let's go to item 5, presentation of your report. Before you, or as you are, hopefully you will fly to your report. We want to just raise the issues that have come up in relation to Ezemvelo, KZN and wildlife. You have had, your audit outcome is a regression where you've moved to a qualified audit opinion, and there are several matters that have been raised. The issue of your asset management and the reflection of your assets, which may contribute to the qualification, the issue of irregular expenditure from the entity, the material uncertainty around the entity about whether it's a going concern or not, the issue of the rationalization of the entity, together with the Sharks Board, the irregular expenditure, your compliance with legislation, there's issues of material misstatements that were not corrected, expenditure management, procurement and contract management contraventions. There's also an investigation report that we'd want an investigation going back as far as July 2020 that we'd like to get some feedback on, and a report, some explanation about your performance report, where the AG, in conducting the performance audit, arrived at a qualified conclusion. Yeah, those are some of the issues. There are obviously more, and you will tell us about them. You'd also, I think, tell us in your presentation about staff vacancies, please, and the plan there.
No, thank you. Thank you very much, Chairperson. I've already greeted you and the members of the committee. The CFO will be leading the presentation, but before the CEO starts with the presentation, we really wish, on behalf of the board and the management of Ezemvelo, KZN Wildlife, we wish really to profusely apologize and take accountability for the regression in the audit outcomes that we have received. We were not expecting it ourselves. As you know, that we have a new board and the new accounting officer who came in the third quarter of the year under review to try and turn around the things. We can assure you that we have put in place the audit improvement plan to try and respond to all the issues that have been raised in the audit outcome. I also want to thank both the Provincial Treasury and also the AG, who have assisted us and contributed in terms of the audit action plan that we'll be presenting today in terms of the guidance on it as we go forward. And we really want to assure you that we will work very hard to turn things around and make sure that things they happen accordingly. Can I then request the CFO to lead our presentation.
CFO.
Thank you very much, CE. I'm going to start sharing the presentation.
Okay, we can see it.
Thank you so much. Greetings again, Chair. All protocols observed. In the interest of time, I'm just going to get on to the presentation. What the Chair has asked in the presentation, what is not included, I'm going to speak to it right at the end so that I'm methodical and then I don't lose track in terms of the sequence that the presentation has been prepared.
CFO, just before you continue, can you just put your video on for a minute so we see the brand new CFO's face and then you can switch off?
Problem.
Thank you.
Nice. Okay. I take it I've been seen. Continuing with my presentation. This is the scope of what I'm covering now. But in light of what the Chair has asked that it be covered, the issue around the position statement, our performance, our organizational highlights in terms of our financial standing, those I'd like to speak to right at the end in answering what the Chair asked that it be covered. The entity indeed did get a qualified audit opinion, and the basis for the qualification is the property, plant and equipment. And what was the findings of the AG is that the entity did not recognize the impairment on assets that were damaged or scrapped, certain assets that were not recorded in the fixed asset register.
CFO, I think you have muted.
Am I still audible?
You are now, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I was saying certain assets that were not recorded in the fixed asset register, they were found on the floor per the findings of the AG. Certain assets that were recorded in the fixed asset register, they could not be located in the asset verification process. And the impact of all these findings, it was an undeterminable amount, hence the qualification. The AG opinion in terms of the irregular expenditure, it also resulted in the qualification. The expenditure that was incurred in terms of the contravention of the supply chain management requirements, AG could not determine the exact amount of this error. Later, when I begin to address what the Chair was asking, I'll touch on that. But the basis for irregular expenditure was around the irregular expenditure, and the quantum of the error could not be quantified. Now, in view of this, as an organization, we've put up a plan to address these findings. I do apologize for the font that may be a bit challenging, but what I'll do, I'll increase the presentation so that it is readable and what one will be able to see. But there's 7 action items that we have put up to actually address the issue on assets. These issues, they are summed up into these 4 slides, and these 7 points, they speak to that. The asset management unit is heavily undercapacitated. The first point, in terms of our action item, we speak of the asset management unit being in the process of filling in the vacancy of the asset manager in the unit post the approval of the Premier's office. That's the action point. And in the next column, we are then giving the updates in terms of how far are we, because that was the action point that we said is going to be the strategy. And then we are then talking in terms of the progress we've made in terms of that recruitment. By the end of October, we are saying we would have conducted the interviews in terms of filling in that position. Number 2, we are saying there's sub-consultants, Zemele, who are on board to actually help us deal with the due diligence. We are using a subsystem in the organization, and this subsystem, there is a need to actually do a due diligence in that system so that we can look at some of the functionalities that are actually not being optimal in actually helping us address the audit findings. The asset management is heavily undercapacitated, as I've said. There is one person in the unit currently in the absence of, and the person is very junior. There's no manager, there's no other people. When we are talking the verification processes that were not done, the impairment exercises that were not done, all this is against the backdrop of just one person. The current asset policy, it needs to be reviewed, and that's why we are putting it as step number 4 in the process. The SOP, in terms of operationalizing what sits in the policy, that is what we put as an action item that we will be actually implementing to address these findings. The asset processes, including the verification, they're very manual in the organization. Barcoding of assets, and this manual process is not interfacing with the SAP system to actually make sure that if the form itself doesn't make it its way to the asset management unit, that record doesn't get lost, or that accurate information actually still makes its way to be recorded, and the valuations are actually recorded, the validity of assets, the correctness of information still is there. So we are automating that process to actually make sure that this asset system, system as in not the actual system, but the system of the asset management as a whole, is actually automated to actually reduce some of the findings that actually could be eradicated in the process. Now, on an ongoing basis, because of this change, there is a need to manage the change management, and through the ongoing training by the asset management unit, workshops that we are planning prior to these key milestones. Key milestones include the policy updates. Key milestones include the SOPs being developed. There's ongoing training that we've put as an action item. Now, that's the strategy that we've put for these assets, be it the scrapping of assets that were damaged and couldn't be found. Now, if you look on the next column, there's a list of items that we have said we've made progress. I'm spending a bit of time, Chair, and the committee members on this slide, because when I speak to the next slide, I'm just going to be highlighting what the finding was, but I won't be spending a lot of time in terms of the progress and the detailed action, because it's the same. Because of the nature of the asset. The only one I may speak to is just the depreciation in a bit more detail. But when it comes to the filling of the position of the asset manager, I've started touching on it, that by end of October, we would have had the interviews. As far as looking at the issue of the system, the SAP system, the consultants are on board, and they are already busy with the exercise of the due diligence to actually look at how is our SAP configured, so that SAP is actually configured in a way that actually assists us to address some of the audit findings, because some of the audit findings, the root cause, it pointed out to the SAP system itself, the configuration. What we are actually reporting in terms of the progress, there has been sessions that has been held between September and October to actually begin to document and actually start the process of this due diligence. But from that exercise, it has, which is I'm at point 3 now. From this due diligence of different streams meeting, streams of IT, streams of FI modules, streams of CO modules, different streams, it has become apparent that our IT system, the QA version, it hasn't run the updates from 2015. So until we actually deal with our IT system, this QA version that hasn't been updated since 2015. So we have to deal with that, which is what we are busy with now. And the timelines of resolving this, it's yet to be determined, because the investigative work of that is what is currently underway to actually bring our IT systems up to date. And then we can continue with the process of bringing all the other modules that support SAP up to date. Then the asset module, the asset unit is being capacitated. We are grateful to Treasury for the support. We've received 3 interns to actually support this one individual that we have in the unit, and that is progressing. To that degree, we've reviewed the policy. we've developed the SOP, and it's currently going through the internal processes of review so that post that it can begin to go through our internal structures in terms of escalation, making its way all through to the board at some point. The fixed asset policy, which is what I'm saying in the SOP, that's the status of them. And then the asset management will be on an ongoing basis conducting this training. At some point, once these documents are ready, they will be undergoing through the training so that staff can understand the impact of what these documents actually are bringing forth. Then the automation process, as I'm saying, which is the 9th point. Once we can deal with the updates of the patches of the system and actually get these modules that are actually needing to be updated, your CO modules, your FI module, your SCM modules up to date, then we can actually finalize the automation project as far as the assisting with the asset issues in resolving them. With your permission, then I can quickly speak to the depreciation quickly. What AG was finding is that at least for the past 3 years, in terms of what they were reporting, but it goes as far back as possible, the system is unable to actually calculate the depreciation correctly. And the root cause of that was actually the subsystem itself was not able to calculate the depreciation. Ordinarily, you would expect that if you buy an asset on the 1st of January, the system must calculate the depreciation from the date it's ready to be used, which is the 1st of January. But our system was currently configured that it will start calculating the depreciation on the 1st, but if it's ready for use on the 30th, it defaults to a particular date. So that is part of what this exercise of due diligence is actually looking at these kind of issues so that depreciation should no longer be an issue for us amongst other issues going forward. Assets not recorded in the fixed asset register. As we begin to automate, I hope I am not lost. I get
Continue, see if we can hear you.
Thank you very much. The assets not recorded in the fixed asset register, as we continue our exercise and complete it, this will be addressed. As I said earlier, I'm not going to be spending much time on this because I have already spent enough time unpacking this. So this action item in the status, it also addresses this issue. Asset recorded in the fixed asset register that do not exist and not barcoded. As we automate, the intent of the barcoding is that we'll get scanners that will actually scan the asset as opposed to physically relying on the budget holders that must go physically and actually check these. Our team will actually go and scan this, and that information will be interfaced onto SAP. So the importance of this automation, which will be a once-off exercise that will start ourselves, will actually improve a lot of efficiencies or inefficiencies that we currently have in the system. So it becomes quite an important milestone for us to get these foundations right and on time. As I move to the next slide, then I want to start talking about the SCM findings. At the heart of what AG was finding in terms of why we had irregular expenditure on our part, it was two issues around the splitting of orders, which is the deliberate split of orders, the payments that were made that exceeded the contract price. And what we are actually saying, we planned this issue of the Zimele, I had touched on it earlier. It also affects the SCM module. And this SCM module being impacted, the planned action that we have spoken about, it also impacts SCM as far as the progress to date. So I'm going to not spend a lot of time on that because I've already spoken to it. But the payments that are made in excess, there is internal controls that we are putting. The procure to pay is part of the solution that we are actually wanting to be activated in full on the system, which at the moment we are not actually running with that in full until we can actually get that. There are other internal controls which we are actually looking at the monthly update and review of the contract register so that you can't pay more than what you actually contracted for. Then the effective reporting in procurement and expenditure based on the due diligence outcome. So this actually becomes quite critical for us because even the reporting to actually monitor your expenditure, those kind of reports at the moment, we are unable to run them until we can actually get the system working as it ought to. Is declaration of interest that was one of the issues that the SBD4 forms that were not submitted or sometimes submitted after the award, which AG raised as one of the issues. And if you look at the number of times this issue has been raised, it's at least 2 times. AG was focused on 2 times, but when we tracked it, it's quite repetitive. But in terms of our nature of business, the emergencies were the root cause of why these declarations would tend to not to be submitted, because if in an emergency a service provider is procured and then the time to actually follow these processes would not be done at that particular point, and then subsequent to a service having been rendered, then you'll find that then the completion of will then be submitted after the service has been rendered, and that will be the primarily the root cause of why this finding would actually be in existence. Same with suppliers whose tax affairs were non-compliant because of the nature of the emergency. Say a burst pipe being stopped before it actually have a spill onto a river, then we're trying to stop that kind of a situation. But the process of actually trying to go about that, it's in a form of an emergency. And in that process, then you'll find that the issue of suppliers whose tax affairs are non-compliant, declaration of interest, non-completing of the SBD4 forms, that's the kind of the root cause why these kind of things will be happening. Deviations, reasons for deviations not justifiables, award to persons in the service of the state. I want to speak to this quickly so that I'm not quickly out of time. But if you look at the deviations, at the root cause, we have had to revise our deviation forms so that it brings more clarity, because through the investigation and the analysis, it became apparent that the deviation form was actually contributing to some of the reasons not justifiable, which was what AG was actually picking up as the main issue. Because of the change in the deviation being our planned intervention, then the information session, training and ongoing awareness in terms of the changes, so that we are not being counterproductive and change the form, and we are still not actually dealing with the root cause, that the reasons are not justifiable, because we still want to get to the root cause, that the reasons for deviation must actually be justifiable, because A, the form is now better understood, but B, the reasons that are being provided are now justifiable in terms of, is it a single source, is it a sole supplier, or is it an emergency? Why are we deviating? The awards to persons in the service of the state, I think this spoke to, there were specific cases, because it wasn't just permeating across the organization. There were just 2 cases. One was a particular individual that worked in the finance division and whose husband was doing business with the organization. It has subsequently stopped, but for 2 years at least, which is what the report speaks to, it had been an ongoing finding by the AG of this person whose spouse was doing business with the organization. And the issue AG was raising was the fact that it's the proximity of the person being in the finance environment, although they were not in the SCM space, but it's the proximity to access to information that it may put them or their spouse at some form of an advantage, one way or the other. But they have subsequently then stopped, that is the spouse, has subsequently stopped doing business with the organization. If I then deal with the issue of the condonation of irregular expenditure, this slide looks at the period from 2017-18 all the way to 2019-20. We had 31 transactions that were covering these periods that I've just mentioned. And in 2017-18, we had 14 transactions that were totaling 7.3 million. 18-19, 5 million. In 19-20, we had about 6.7 million. Now, what one would just maybe want to sum up here is the issue that the investigation report by internal audit, it revealed that during the year, there were no loss that was incurred and that the value for money was received by the entity. Regrettable that the processes were not followed, but it gives a little bit of assurance that there was no loss, financial loss that was lost, in the sense that there was money that was stolen in any of these transactions between the period 2017-18. We are dealing with cases of non-compliance with policies and procedures. The report further revealed that none of the regular expenditure incurred related to fraudulent, corrupt, or criminal conduct. Now, our employee relations and internal audit, because of the passage of time, they are considering that some of the identified transactions they occurred some years ago. So we are now busy looking at tracing these individuals, because most of them, they are no longer in the employ of our organization. So we are busy pursuing other methods to trace them within the state, the employ of the state as a whole. The condonation process, this is where we stand between that period of 2018-19 to 2020, 17-18 to 2019-20. For approved condonation, we have 9.8 million that was approved by Treasury. What was not assessed, internal audit as part of the process, it had initially been included that Treasury had to apply themselves, but through our internal audit, 56,000 was then removed because internal audit did their work, and they felt that 56, based on the audit evidence, it didn't require AG, it didn't require Treasury apologies to actually do any condonation. There was sufficient evidence for this amount not to be condoned or otherwise. 484,000 value for money information. We were asked to submit the value for money. It wasn't approved initially, but we were asked to submit further information for further assessment. 4.2 million transactions, they were referred to legal services for consequence management. It's 4.2 million, and that process of consequence management is underway. 1.8 million value for money information submitted to transactions that were referred to legal for consequence management. The 2.3 million, the transaction, they are still under investigation by the Office of the Premier. So it was not assessed under forensic investigation. So this 2.3 million is under the Office of the Premier. The 126,000, is referred to internal audits for further investigation. Our internal audit is still busy with this 126,300. The 241, its irregular expenditure schedules have been revised because it was an overstatement. that note, I thank you on this presentation. I'll then quickly speak to the issues that the chair asked that we also cover in terms of the financial position of the organization, etc., etc. The financial position of the organization as at year end, we are not a solvent organization. AG also raised that as a going concern issue that the organization as a whole, we need to address. It is an issue that is before our board. It is an issue that is before it's a standing agenda item that is constantly being addressed. There's various plans that the organization is busy with to actually address this issue of the going concern. In terms of our current ratios, if you look at our financial position, as at the end of March, for every rand that we owed, we had about 71 cents. That was at the end of March, 31 March 2023, my apologies. So that speaks to the question that the chair raised. And as far as the issue of the rationalization, it was an emphasis of matter that the AG raised in terms of our report of 22-23, and that is something that also is a consideration or a focus point by our board. And I hope I have addressed the other issues that were not included in this presentation, but they were part of what one was asked to actually speak to. And I hope I have been comprehensive enough to actually cover every aspect that we were asked to speak to. Thank you very much.
Thank you, CFO. I can see the hand of the CEO, Mr. Mkhize.
No, thanks, Chair. I just wish to add in terms of responding to the questions that you wanted us to address as part of this presentation, starting with the issue of the critical vacancies. You will be aware that the Premier had approved about 114 critical vacancies. I'm pleased to report that as an organization, we have filled 95% of those vacancies that have been approved by the Premier. And we've also, as part of that process, we've filled in the key critical positions in the organization, such as that one of the CFO. We have the CFO who's very knowledgeable in these matters of finance. We have filled the security manager. We have filled the senior legal advisor. We have also filled the commercial services manager. That is at a senior manager, those critical positions. The board has also advertised for the permanent CEO's position. It closed last week, so we are hoping to fill that position soon. We have also, because of the financial situation that the CFO has spoken about, we are in the process now of reviewing our organogram, because if you look at more than 70% of our budget, it goes to staff benefits. So if we really want to deal with the issue of cost, that's where we need to start looking. So with the assistance of Edtea, we are getting a specialist who's assisting us to re-engineer the staff at a lower level to make sure that it talks to the issue of the mandate and there are no leakages in that regard. We've also embarked on revenue enhancement initiatives to deal with the issues of finances, such as sweating the existing assets, the contracts, the commercialization. The board has just approved the strategy and the policy, and there are projects, the first projects that have been approved. We've sent them to National Treasurer for deviation so that we advertise them outside. In terms, you asked the question about the investigations that were supposed to commence in 2019-2020. Unfortunately, the Office of the Premier did not commence those forensic investigations timeously, but through the push of the board and ourselves, with the support of the shareholder department, they finally managed to commence the forensic investigation only in December last year, 2022. They have not finalized that investigation, which relates to security and gate management and the aviation tender. It mainly relates to the board that was suspended at Ezemvelo. So we are hoping that they will be finalizing that forensic investigation by this calendar year, before this calendar year, because I think they've made a lot of progress in that regard. Let me conclude by indicating that as part of the investigations that we are doing on some of these findings, we are very clear that consequence management has to be applied to people who got us into this situation, especially for the last financial year. You will have seen from the AG report that most of the issues are historical from the previous years and so forth, but they are catching with us now. But for those staff members that will be found to have not assisted us, to have not done their job, myself as the accounting officer and the board, we've been very clear that we'll be instituting the consequence management once we've completed the necessary investigation as per the irregular expenditure protocol. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, CEO. Okay, so colleagues, we have the presentation. I must say that prior to meeting with the department, we had a detailed briefing from the AG and the Internal Audit and Risk, and members, were extremely concerned. I think this presentation has addressed some of the concerns, but let me leave it to members to raise issues with the entity. Okay, I see the hand of Honorable Kaula.
Honorable Chair, it's Honorable Kulu.
Okay, Honorable Kaula, Honorable Tulu, Honorable Rogers, Honorable Cele, and Mr. Tau. I think I've covered all of you. Let's have you in that order, please.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, Ezemvelo, and the board members and the CEO and his delegation and everybody else. Thanks for the presentation. Chair, I do want to go back to what I raised earlier on, like you said. I just want to raise it with the accounting officer to say, in slide 3, where the AG talks to the issues of certain assets that were recorded in the FAR and could not be located during the asset verification process. As a committee, we are concerned about that, and we want you to explain that there is no corruption here, that this, when anyone goes to ground, they can be able to put their finger on them. The story of South Africa sometimes is money has been spent, but the project does not exist on the ground. I just want the CEO to confirm that these assets are there on the ground. Slide 7, Chairperson. Just one issue that I'd like this.
Honorable Kaula. Oh, okay, I think he's...
Chair, I'm here.
Yes, okay, fine. Proceed.
Thanks, Chair. Slide 7 has got a very interesting line, accounting officer, on the root cause, which says that the difference was immaterial. I just want you to explain that if it was immaterial, why does then it become an issue with the AG? If you can just give me that clarity, because I don't understand it. Something that is immaterial should not then be an issue. Now it's an issue, but you say it's immaterial. And then slide 12. Slide 12, it talks to the awards to persons in service of the state. You have explained it, but by law, this is a criminal offense. Whether it has stopped or not, whatever has happened should have been reported to the SAPS because it is criminality. What I want to find out, accounting officer, have you reported this to the SAPS? Have you opened charges with them? Are you taking action in respect of the staff member or staff members who are implicated here? Because it's one issue saying I'm sorry. There is no sorry with law. People have to account. They must go to court and explain themselves. Have you done that? And lastly, Chair, where accounting officer, you speak of the organogram and you speak of the employments which are at 95% of about 120 posts or so. And you say that you are also reviewing the organogram. I think it's the other way around. How do you go to employ? And after you have employed, you say you are going to be relooking at the organogram. Now, you are complaining of 70% of the budget that goes to salaries, but you have employed. And after employing, you do the organogram. It should have been organogram first and then employments. I don't get you there. Can you explain yourself to me? Thank you.
Honorable Rogers.
I thought it was Honorable Kulu.
Oh, sorry. Honorable Kulu, then Honorable Rogers, then Honorable Taylor.
Oh, two ways. You look better than me anyway.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Greetings, honorable members and our official present and the board. Chair, again, on the asset management, I heard the report says they had a junior staff member, but my question is, I mean, having that junior, is that an excuse to say you did not respond to AG's report in 2 financial years just because we had a junior staff member? I don't think that is enough. Honestly, I think they must tell us something better than that, because there is no way you will tell us that you failed to manage your assets because you had a junior staff and you knew that. And then what have you done about that? It seems to be you have done nothing about that. So that is where my first concern will be. And also on responding to AG's findings for like 2 financial years, it seems to I did not get the proper answer onto that, because there are some findings where it was found on the first financial year and it's still there. And I did not hear you saying what happened. Why you didn't correct what the AG has found on the first financial year coming to the second year? And also on the consequence management, I heard the report where she said the consequence management is on its way. I really don't understand. I will be gladly accept when she told us the timeline. What is the timeline of this consequence management? It can't just be an ongoing thing, because by look of things, the next financial report or the AG's report that we'll find, it will be on the way again. So I will say maybe if you can just try and talk to some of these questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Taylor. No, Honorable Rogers, sorry.
Thanks very much, Chair. And thank you to Ezemvelo for the presentation. I want Ezemvelo and the officials to put themselves in Scopa's shoes, because for the last 10 years, we keep hearing about these wonderful turnaround strategies and these wonderful plans, but year in and year out, we still find ourselves in this dire position. I think back, we had David Mabunda from Sandparks who went into Ezemvelo and he threw in the towel and said there was too much internal politics, he couldn't turn it around. The ex-HOD of Treasury was sent into Ezemvelo and very little happened. So we've got a great plan here, but the reality is the plan is only as good as its implementation. So a lot of the questions have been raised, Chair, but what I want to understand from the plan, from the CEO and the CFO, and if there are any board members, is exactly how this plan is going to be monitored. Because the last thing we want to do is come back in a year's time and have exactly the same problem. So The issues of SCM, the issue of asset management, and various other issues that have been highlighted, these are not new to Ezemvelo. They're old ones. So unless Scopa actually puts in some process of monitoring and understands who's going to monitor this plan, it's quite frankly, Chair, not worth the paper it's written on, because we have this, as I repeat, for the last 10 years. We've got these wonderful ideas, but they never actually materialize. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Honourable Rogers. Honourable Cleela.
Thank you so much, Honourable Chair. Greetings to the colleagues from Ezemvelo and the board members. Chair, I think my sentiments is almost as yours, to say that after the briefing that we had received from the AG, I find comfort in the responses that we were given by the CFO. But like Honourable Rogers is saying, I just want to know the timeframes of the turnaround strategy, and to say that perhaps can we give them, because what the answers that she's given, she's quite new. So for me, I'm quite happy with the way that she has responded to most of the questions that was on my mind when it comes to this report. I just need to know the time frame and to say perhaps let's give them about 3-4 months, and then they must come back and we can see how far they've come with responding to some of the things that the AG has raised, Chair. Otherwise, thanks.
Thanks, Honourable Taylor. We'll come to the time frame issue just now. Mike Tar.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'm just trying to get clear in my mind the sort of chain of command or responsibility. We have Ezemvelo who have their own independent auditors. I'm not sure who they are. Perhaps we can hear who they are later on. Those auditors then report to the board, and the board in turn then would report to the MAC. Now, something's gone wrong in that whole process there, because why is it now left up to the Auditor General to actually find and deal with all these matters? You would have hoped, or I would have hoped, that with a competent firm of auditors doing the job, they would have, in fact, made some of these findings, which they would have reported to the board, which they do. And, you know, why must it get this stage before these matters are dealt with? Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Mike. Is there anybody else of the members of the legislature who want to raise any issues before the entity responds? Okay. I want to just, before handing over to the entity, I want to agree with the idea that there be timeframes. You see, the new CFO has presented us, as Honourable Rogers has pointed out, with the umpteenth turnaround strategy. And, you know, we want to give credit where it's due. There is one, but we want to see progress. So I think in terms of timeframes, February 2024 looks reasonable. That's giving you about 3 months, almost 4 months. So, you know, in terms of looking at how far you've gone. The other issue would be the issue of financial sustainability, because whilst all this is occurring, the entity still has to generate revenue to sustain itself. Thus far, it's actually been carried by provincial government in the form of the department. It's not generating income on its own. So we'd need that strategy as well. And it's not enough to tell us that, you know, it's what's it, 70 cents to the rand or whatever that the entity has. We need more. Those are two of the things. And then the whole issue of, you know, the asset management plan. We are told it's being automated. We have had many departments who are supposed to undergo automation and we don't see the results. So we'd like to put the time frame on that as well. But let me hand over. I don't know. There's Mr. Naidu from the board. Do you want to say anything, or any other board member? Remember, the board is the accounting authority, and the board is the one that the officials report to.
With your permission, Chairperson, I may speak.
Yes, Mr. Naidu.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson, Honourable members of the Legislature, our acting CEO and officials of Ezemvelo. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Firstly, let me say that I, together with my colleagues, have been on this board for the last 15 months, and we are certainly committed to transforming Ezemvelo, restoring it to its former glory as a conservation agency, promoting tourism at the same time. Now, many of the issues that have been discussed have been dealt with at board level, and we are concerned as members of the legislature are. And we have reiterated the very same points that you have made about what we expect out of our management and the trajectory and the route that Ezemvelo needs to travel in order to bring about improvement. And I agree with the sentiment. We can't go on for 10 years doing the same thing and not producing different results. We want that change to happen. And I want to say that we have a very committed, dynamic board. We have 2 legal eagles on the board. We have a chartered accountant. We have a HR professional, 2 former politicians. So I think we have a lovely mix and a board that is forward-looking and very committed. I must say that we want to get, this is now post the floods and the social unrest and COVID-19, which has impacted on many of our resorts. We are attempting to accelerate the process of getting as many units back online so that we can increase our revenue generation program, improve revenue collection so that we can address that shortfall that we are talking about. We're also looking out of and thinking creatively. We look at international donor agencies that are very keen to look at the conservation aspect of our work and how they can help us. We've made progress in terms of infrastructural issues, including the fencing and the road upgrades, but we do not have the budget to get all of our units in our resorts up to date and back online. They're being done incrementally, and I really think that when complete, we will be back on our feet again. And yes, I think the time frame will be important for both the board and management to put programs in place so that we can come back in February 2024 and say, this is the kind of progress we have made. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks, Mr. Naidu. Anybody else wants to add anything? Okay.
Okay.
Who is that? The CEO?
Yes. I thought you were still allowing the board.
Yes.
I'm not sure if the chair of the Audit and Risk will want to talk before I come in.
Yes, Chair. Greetings to the chairperson and the members of the legislature, colleagues from Ezemvelo. Indeed, Chairperson, I want to agree with the sentiments made by Mr. Naidu. I think the board has taken a very drastic decision in ensuring that at least we fill the key fundamental vacancies in the organization. The first one being that one of the CFO, and secondly, as a CE was indicating that currently that one of the CE is in the market. And we strongly believe that at least by the end of this year, we'll definitely finalize all these key positions. But Chairperson, I think from there we'll then be able to move to the right direction. And the Chairperson, I think, believes that the action plan that has been presented is credible. And obviously, our role, Chairperson, will be just to make sure that we monitor the implementation of these deliverables as they are embedded in this plan and subsequently report as such to the board. Chairperson, I must also say that most of these issues that the Office of the Auditor General was actually raising, like for instance, issues of asset management, the problems thereof, and also issues of irregular expenditure, are some of the issues that were raised internally by our own internal audit. But the key fundamental challenge, Chair, was the fact that, the majority of these key positions were not filled, including that one of the asset management. And also the CE may want to agree with me that also the position of the SCM manager has been filled recently. And currently, Chair, there's a lot of work that has been done in a couple of months back, which includes, among others, review of our SCM policies, development of standard operating procedures. And the focus of the board, Chair, in the couple of months was more of ensuring that we strengthen our policy environment, that we also strengthen our governance environment. And I want to believe that as we are implementing this action plan, we'll be able to see the tangible result at the end of the year. That's our commitment, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dladla. Mr. Mkhize, do you want to say anything?
Yes, no, thanks, Chair. Let me start by responding to some of the questions, and then the CFO will deal with the rest. Starting with the question by Honorable Kaula, in terms of the assets not located, and what has been the issue, has some of it been stolen? In terms of the preliminary investigation that we have done, as the CFO has indicated, one of the things that we have established, other than the issue of the capacity, not just at the asset management, but also in some of our reserves, protected areas and facilities that are out there, you find that people also, they borrow each other assets, where one area will borrow the assets to another area without necessarily recording it down. So when it comes and it's being looked for, it's not being found. So we've not found, from the preliminary investigation, we've not found any evidence that of the assets that have been stolen, but we are still finalizing that. As the CFO has indicated, we've brought in now other people from the reserve to help in terms of locating all the assets and making sure that they are properly recorded and barcoded accordingly, which we think will assist us accordingly. So mainly the capacity constraint issues and the issue about people not properly accounting for the movement of the assets within our many reserves that we have. It's one of the issues we are dealing with, and it's one of the issues that we've identified that there will definitely be consequence management for those that will be found wanting. I want to address, the Honorable Kaula is asking me if I have reported the issue of the family member doing business with Ezemvelo. I must state that as the CFO has indicated, that this started in the previous financial year. The investigation that has already been done, it has already concluded that this person independently applied, and the lady who's working at the finance department has not been involved in any SCM processes in terms of processing the tender. So we've not identified any fraudulent issue, and it's not that it's our staff member who was doing business, but it's a family member. But from the investigations that have been done and the reports, is that this person applied independently, and we have not seen any contravention that has been done. But AG is correct in terms of raising this as a potential issue that we need to look at. As a clear action plan, we have now written to all staff members into saying the declaration and not allowing people to do business with the state and those that are in SCM processes as per the prescripts of government. The last question from Honorable Kaula about the post. Maybe let me clarify that. Honorable Kaula, you'll be aware that I've just mentioned that we finalized the commercialization strategy. as part of the outcome of the commercialization strategy, what we have said is that we want to put all our ecotourism facilities out as part of the commercialization. So obviously that affects the organogram of the organization, which will need to be reviewed. So we feel that that is giving us space. You will also be aware that we are currently managing some of Isimangaliso ecotourism facilities, and Isimangaliso themselves, they are undergoing commercialization. They've already given us a notice that they want us out of those facilities. And we are also embarking on a rationalization process with Sharksport. So those three key major events, it necessitates for us to really review the organogram in the light of commercialization, moving away from Isimangaliso and the issue of the ROPET. The issue about the consequence management, coming to Honorable Uxabashe Uxulu, the issue about the timelines for consequence management, we fully agree with you. In terms of the protocol for irregular expenditure, our audit and foreign investigations unit, they now have to investigate all these matters that the AG has found and be able to clearly identify who has put us into this position. If there is someone found in terms of that investigation, that will be done. But we'll be happy to present the report in terms of the plan and when it's going to happen in terms of the quotas that will happen. Honorable Rogers asked a pertinent question about how is the plan going to be monitored. The finance subcommittee of the board with the audit and risk, they've already given us a directive that this plan must be monitored on a monthly basis by themselves, and they will be reporting to the board on a quarterly basis in terms of the implementation of this plan as we go forward. I fully agree with Honorable Tlele in terms of the timeframes. As we have said, if you look at our action plan, it's got the timeframe. In fact, our detailed operational plan, it's got the timeframes on all the other activities. So if maybe there is a request to share this, we can share that with the members of the committee, because that is what we are tracking. Because if you do not have any time frame, things will just happen and move land forward. Honorable Tai, in terms of the chain of command, you are correct. As you have seen, we've got the audit and risk committee, which is chaired by Mr. Dladla, reporting to the board, and then the MEC. As he has indicated, some of the issues they have raised, but because of capacity constraints and other issues, they have not been necessarily attended to. But we have given assurance here that we are really going to be seized and dealing with those issues in addressing them accordingly. Thank you very much, Chair. And
thank you. Were you going to add something, Mr. Mkhize?
No, Chair, maybe in conclusion, because I might not get another opportunity, we really would want to thank the members of Scopa for the feedback that they've given us, and also for holding us to account in terms of these issues. We can assure you that we'll really do our level best not to disappoint you. Yesterday, we had a meeting with the MEC who raised similar sentiments. So he is also monitoring this plan that we have put in place, that is going to happen together with the board. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Colleagues? Okay, I think in terms of the way forward, I'm seeing Honorable Kaula's hand.
No, Chair, thank you very much. Thanks for
Sorry,
the
Honorable
responses.
Kaula and then Honorable Mchali.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the responses. Just one issue, Chair. The issue of family members. I'm not happy, Chair. We have had ministers losing their positions because family members would have been doing business with their departments. So, Ezemvelo, you can't treat this that lightly. It's not a light matter. It's very intense. It's an issue that we have got to go into, and consequence management has to apply here. There are instances where ministers have lost their jobs because of this issue. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Kaula. Honorable Mchali.
Thanks, Chair. Look, for me, Chair, I'm still not convinced with the issue of the assets and the register. I mean, they say that when the AG was verifying their assessment or their response is that sometimes people borrow these assets and they don't record them down. As a result, when someone wants to look for them, because it's not recorded and it's not known the whereabouts of it, as such, it can't be found. That's a reckless statement. It makes me to believe that it could be true that indeed these assets are not there. It could be true that indeed corruption had taken place. Because if AG comes, or if anyone comes for that matter and say that we want to verify these assets, surely I should know that these assets are taken by Honorable Kaula and they are at the premises of Honorable Kaula. Then I must make means of ensuring that either they come back here or we go to Honorable Kaula's premises so that it can be verified. I can't simply say, hey, look, man, they were taken by someone, but this person forgot to indicate the whereabouts or forgot to register that this was taken by who or who moved this. It can't. It means it can easily be that I will always say that when assets are needed that have aimed to be existing, and I could always say, no, don't worry, they are not here, but we have them. But they are just somewhere, but we have them. Just take our words for it. So for me, I think if they are saying that they are also conducting their own investigation, surely their investigation should then be brought back to us, Chair, so that we can get comfort in knowing that indeed these are the assets, not just the mere weight that is saying, yes, the assets are existent, but the challenge is because of they could have been removed or whatever the case might be. We need evidence. It must be based on evidence, not just on the words that this is what could have transpired. We want to touch them, want them to say they've touched them, they are existing, and this is the report of it. That's all, Chair. Thanks.
Thanks, Honorable Mchali. Ms. Kumalo, I see your hand is up.
Thank you, Chairperson. I wanted to attempt to respond to this in trying to actually give some context to this finding of the AG and maybe outline certain processes that may try and address this issue to the full extent of it. The process of the verification within the organization, it goes as follows. AG would go to different sites of our organization, and the kind of assets that here are in question, it would, in the results, we would have different assets from chairs to desks to the machines, cutting grass machines, different type of assets. These assets, they have barcodes. When AG was making the kind of findings, in certain instances or in most instances, the barcodes have fallen off. And the importance of a barcode is that it's an identifier of an asset. When the asset does not have a barcode anymore, it becomes difficult for any auditor, be it our internal auditors, because this finding is there in our internal audit report as well as external audit report. So it becomes difficult for any auditor to actually verify that this oval-shaped desk or table, it actually belongs in the CFO's office or it belongs in whoever's office, because the barcode actually tells that this is table number 5 that was bought in 1999 at a cost price of 5,000 and it's been depreciated for the past 10 years. It now has a remaining useful life of X and it's the book value on it is Y. Now, that's the heart of this issue. When in most instances they were saying they couldn't locate some assets, they come in two categories. Some assets, they were physically there, but in the register, they are not there because they can't be identifiable. In certain instances, some assets, they were actually not where they're supposed to be because of the nature of our facilities, that if someone moves...
Ms. Kumalo, if I can just stop you. We understand what you are saying, and members are raising that precisely as a concern, that the management and control of the assets is what needs to be tightened up. You see, it's not sufficient to say that they are in our facilities and therefore there could have been some looseness, etc. What members want an assurance is these assets were purchased. They should have been recorded. You said there's a barcode, but you also pointed out that sometimes barcodes fall off. But there should be a record of where they are located. And there should be a system of control which does not allow them to be moved. If they are moved, then that must be part of the system to reflect that they've been moved from point A to point B. That is the concern of members. So members are saying that we want to see in place a proper system for the management of the assets so that they can be accounted for down to the last asset. That is what they want. And now this is why we are saying we are giving you 3 months. Go back and come and let us know how far you have progressed with sorting out and cleaning up your asset management, your asset register. Because this is an Achilles heel, not just through the Ezemvelo. We've seen this too many times. That's why as Scopa, we raised this thing and we are skeptical when we told about the plans and there are no time frames, etc. We've seen this, for example, with the Department of Health, where there have been these problems for many years. Took a long time sorting out. Department of Human Settlements, and there are others. So we understand what you are saying perfectly, but what we want is the way forward and the time frame. That's what we want. Now, you've given us an improvement strategy. We have given you a time frame. Let's work with that.
Great. Thank you, Chairperson.
Colleagues? Okay. I think what we need to do, and maybe we must just also give a heads up to the entity. Prior to meeting with you, there was a very heated and long discussion with the members of both the Portfolio Committee as well as Scopa. And some of the things we were looking at was in view of the poor state of affairs in Ezemvelo, right? But we said that we'll hear what the entity has to say. We're looking at getting a legal opinion on what intervention can be made, concerns about the financial sustainability and the management as well. So we're giving you the 3 months, right, to action. We understand also that the CFO is new, the CEO is acting. Concern, of course, is that when the new CEO gets appointed, if it's somebody completely new, then they're going to have to hit the ground running. But anyway, that issue will have to be resolved. We're appreciative of the fact that the MEC has been taking an interest in what's going on here and pressurizing for resolution. So in the 3 months, right, we trust that this audit improvement strategy that's been presented is actioned and we will get progress on it. That's what we want to see. Okay. I think in terms of the rationalization, etc., those processes, well, we'll see how they go. But the main thing is we want Ezemvelo to be financially viable and sustainable. We hear what Mr. Naidu is saying, but we've heard that before, Mr. Naidu, where, we are told renovations are being done, etc. And it's the chicken and egg. And what was pointed to us is that many people actually book in resorts around the Ezemvelo ones and just go to the game reserve. So, it's not that things are not happening out there as well. And that's our concern. But members, let's move on this point. We've got a time frame here. There will be detailed resolutions, by the way, that will come to the entity, and you will have to provide that feedback as well. But I think right now, colleagues, you've said whatever you've raised, whatever you want to raise, and I think we are beginning to repeat ourselves. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to just close, but I do think that we've covered the ground.
You are right, Chair.
Yes. No, you are right, Chair.
Okay. All right, then we'll thank the entity for coming here, the CEO, the CFO, the board members. You have a big task in front of you, and we are actually trusting that you will actually will see some light at the end of this tunnel, because Ezemvelo is an important asset in the province. You know, somebody many years ago, I heard them saying it's a jewel in KZN's crown. And it's something that can also improve the fortunes of the province if it's managed properly and if we're able to get it to be sustainable. So that's the responsibility resting with you. We know it's a new board as well, but we also need you to crack the whip to ensure that, you see, although there's new people that have been appointed in some of the key positions, there's also a lot of deadwood within the organization who have got comfortable in doing things in the old way, and obviously this has not yielded the required results. So we'd like to thank all of you, and I think we can release you. Our resolutions will follow. There will be communication with you, and we have to also say that there is going to be a meeting between the Scopa and Environmental Affairs, and hopefully with the MEC and the HOD as well, to try and look at some way forward as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chair.
The committee.
Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Okay, bye.
Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you for attending and contributing.
Well done on your closing remarks. Well done, Chair.
Yeah. Okay, our next colleagues, our next entity is our next entity is the IDFC, Ithala Development Finance Corporation. I think they are here. Kabo.
Thank you very much, Honorable
Yes, they are
Chair.
here.
Good.
Thank you very much, Tabo. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, Ms. Govender, honorable members of the Scopa and honorable members of the Portfolio Committee. We do have our chairperson, Mr. Sipesihle Mkhize, here as well with us. And Chair, we do have a new CFO as well, Ms. Amanda Zuma, who will be taking us through the presentation. But Chair, I know that I must take my oath first. I, Pearl Bengu, swears to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God. So Chair, this financial year, I must just mention... yes, Chair. Yes, Chair. Am I audible?
You are audible, Ms. Bengo. Can we also get Ms. Zuma to take the oath of affirmation at the same time? And anybody else who might speak, not the board members, the officials, and then we'll leave it to you to tell us how this presentation is going to happen.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Ms. Zuma.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and greetings to you, members of the Portfolio Committee, members of Scopa, members of the Audit Committee, the MEC, the Acting HOD, the Chairperson of the Board, GCE, and colleagues. I, Amanda Zuma, hereby swear that I'll tell the truth, nothing but the truth, so help me God.
CFO, can we also ask that you briefly just show us your face? You are a new CFO. We'd like to see you. Thank you. You can switch off your video. We've seen you now. Thank you. Honorable Kaula, I see your hand is up. Honorable Kaula. Honorable Kaula.
Unmute. We've been teaching you one and the same thing, Kaula. Unmute.
Honorable Kaula, we can't hear you because you are on mute. Okay, we'll have to wait for what he has to say. Before you go into that presentation and the introduction CEO, let me just say that in terms of the IDFC, right, in terms of your audit outcome, give me a second, right. Okay, in terms of your audit outcome, what we find is that you have an unqualified audit, but there are issues that have come up. There's a material uncertainty about whether you are a going concern, right? There's also issues around irregular expenditure and your SEM process. Am I doing the right one?
No.
Sorry.
Sorry, Chair, that's not us. Sorry,
Yes,
Chair.
correct. You have had an unqualified audit, yes. Sorry. Yes. And also, what we wanted to do is check with you about your contract management, right? Which I think is one of the issues that has come up in the presentation that we had. So let me hand over to you, Ms. Bengu, and your team.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and greetings to everyone again. Chair, as I've said, our chair is here. Chair, maybe just to mention that as IDFC, we do have a subsidiary, which is Ithala SOC, which you might have been reading from Ithala. They will be making their own presentation after us. But as IDFC Chair, maybe just to mention that we have improved by far. We have had no irregular expenditure for the past 3 financial years, and we have had no fruitless and wasteful expenditure for the past 3 financial years. Chair, I will give over, to our CFO just to take us to the presentation. And Chair, just to mention that we are a complicated entity, but I think this time we have shown some difference. Thank you, Chair. Over to you, Amanda.
Thank you, CEO. Yes, in terms of, in fact, your audit outcome is actually good, except around your compliance with legislation, where for the past 3 years, you've had a repeat finding. But your financial statements have received, have remained as clear. Your performance report, the AG has not had any findings on that for the past 3 years. It's just the one thing, the annual financial statement and performance report, where compliance with legislation has been an issue. And here what the AG is talking about is your software and limited capacity within your IT department. Management had responded very slowly to address deficiencies on the financial statement, and it's your IT environment that needs to be enhanced according to what we are being told. So let's proceed with you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Greetings once again. I'll go straight to the key slide that talks to the entities within the IDFC and the 2 entities that are sitting with material findings on the compliance. It's the IDFC and Ithala SOC, and all the other ones have received no material findings on the compliance. And then moving on to the issue, Chair, you've correctly said we have received a finding on the financial statements on the material adjustment. I'll quickly go through that in terms of what makes up that finding that was reported. There were findings within the financial statements where the disclosure notes on the rental income did not include some requirements as required by IFRS. And then the second one was also on the investment property note, where the table showing the rental income and the rental expenses had a total as opposed to just showing those line items. And then the last one was the issue of loans to subsidiaries that were disclosed as non-current instead of splitting between current and non-current, as some of them were due within the next 12 months. These items were corrected before the finalization of the financial statements, and as such, they've been closed. But as part of the action plan, in order to prevent similar matters or any other material adjustments to the AFS, we said we are going to be, strengthening our reviews and intensifying those reviews. And a part of that now, we said for the key disclosure notes and the complex matters, we are going to be starting interim financial statements as part of the process, so that any other errors, we identify them early and then correct. And if there's a need for any intervention, we implement that before the submission. And we said we're also going to have the reviews by internal audits, which is normal part of the process, but they will be involved in this interim financial statements. We also said we will be embarking on peer reviews as well, in terms of, we generally have a technical expert or IFRS specialist that reviews our financial statements. We said that we will bring them in earlier, so that none of these or any upcoming matters within the IFRS space are identified. And also, with us doing these things early, it will give us an opportunity to actually have a peer review by provincial treasurer. I know that generally everyone will look to treasury in terms of them assisting, but obviously we said if we do it early in terms of these reviews with our interim, it gives them an opportunity as well to just extend the resources insofar as the review is concerned. So that's the actions that we are going to undertake insofar as preventing any material adjustments to the AFS, be it on the similar nature that was identified the prior or any other developments within the AFS space. Maybe just to move to the issues of irregular expenditure, which was also as part of the agenda. As CE has said, we don't have any new irregular expenditure. And we are moving towards elimination and addressing what's already been disclosed. So in terms of the four matters, there are matters that have been referred to the Commissioner Crimes Public Prosecutor for decision, and as those that were criminal in nature. And then also what has happened is that in terms of the revised Treasury regulations, all irregular expenditure matters have to be assessed and taken through the Loss Control Committee. So what IDFC has done is that all these matters that are in the irregular expenditure are taken through that process, and some of them will be tabled in the next Audit and Risk Committee, which is the next phase after the Loss Control Committee. 6 matters have been condoned by Provincial Treasury by end of the financial year, and they're amounting to just over 958,000. And a further 6 matters amounting to just over 698,000 have been approved by the board for removal from the register, and those have been processed. And then in order to comply with the regulation that I've referred earlier on loss control matters, there is just almost 99 million of the irregular expenditure, which does include the amounts that are referred to the public prosecutor. Those have been recommendations have been made, and it will be tabled in the committee meeting in November before being taken to the board. And the remainder then is also what is still going under assessment before taking them to the Loss Control Committee and the other government structures. That's where we are, Chair, in terms of just addressing some of the findings. Insofar as the IT issues that you have raised, we are undertaking processes where obviously we're reviewing some of our IT systems. Some of them, yes, they're quite old, but in terms of the business, there is heavy reliance, in terms of them. where again for you to you replace or upgrade them, you do have to consider the funding that you have within the entity. So that being said, we are assessing them in terms of what is it that you can replace or upgrade within the budget and the funds that you have, and for the other ones, what sort of internal controls that you can have, so that again you are still able to obviously perform your functions and without obviously compromising yourself in terms of the control environment and also the business. So that's where we are, Chair, in terms of ourselves as IDFC. Not sure if CE wants to add something, but thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ms. Zuma. Look, in terms of the entity, it was the one area which was flagged by the AG, and we'd like that area cleared, because overall your performance has been fine. And I think the issue of stricter IT controls is an important one. The AG has actually raised that, and the control environment over revenue collection, it's pointed out by the AG, also requires improvement. So those are your areas. Colleagues, can I open to you for questions, comments, clarity?
Oh, Honorable Tulu, Chairperson.
Honorable Tulu, is there anybody else? Okay, Honorable Tulu, it's all yours.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and also thank you for the presentation. I think I agree with you that issue of IT by AG, I think they must come up with a clear plan. What is the plan, and then what are the timelines? I think for me to be just that only. Just timeline and then the plan that is in place, and then what will be the timeline. Thank you.
Honorable Kaula and then Honorable Mchali. Honorable Kaula and then Honorable Mchali. Honorable Kaula. You are on mute, Honorable Kaula. Okay, let's take Honorable Mchali and Kabo, can you just check what's happening with Honorable Kaula? In the meantime, let's let Honorable Mchali speak, please.
Thanks, Chair. Honorable Kawula, you must come this side because you see you are having serious challenges that side. No, Chair, I think it is very prudent that we, as a committee, we commend Miss Pelpengo and her entire team for the improvement. And I think they are now showing to be consistent with the improvement. Yes, there are those issues that you have raised, the Chair, which I think they will be able to deal with them. But I think we ought to reflect when these institutions are performing better and are meeting our expectations. So that would have been my submission, Chair, that they must not drop the ball now because they are far better organized now and they've managed directly to respond to the system. It's only just these few matters that they need to be responding to it. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Mchali. Yes, in fact, if you look at their reports, it's a good report. The one area, if they sort that out, they'll be clean. Honorable Kaula, I see you are back. Honorable Kaula? Okay, Kabo, can you please just check, because I know the member wants to speak, but unfortunately we're not getting him. All right, colleagues, is the...
Sorry, no, yeah, it's a challenge that it opens, but when it speaks, then it seems like the network is back from his side. Yeah.
Okay, because I can see his hand is up.
All right.
Are you able?
Thanks, Chair. Thank you very much.
Right. Continue, Honorable Kaula. Now we've lost him. Yeah, I think we've lost Honorable Kaula. Kabo, just do a check. If he wants to, he can also send a message on this chat, if we are missing him out, or a voice note, if needs be, or you can connect his telephone and, he can speak through his phone. Are there any others who wish to raise issues? The entity really doesn't have much.
Let the chair continue.
Right, Kaula, we can hear
It's
you.
okay. Let the chair continue.
Are you okay? Because we can't hear you now. Okay. All right. Then, colleagues, I think Ms. Bengo and your team, all we want is to push you to get that clean audit.
Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, no, thank you. Quickly.
Honorable Kaula, we could hear you.
Rest, Kaula, rest. This one is not for you.
Shame.
No, proceed, Chair. Proceed, Chair. This thing is giving me challenges. Proceed.
It's when you tell me to proceed that we can hear you. Why don't you just speak and let's see?
He must write a note. We'll read it.
Yeah, okay. All right. So, colleagues, if there is, and I'm not closing the discussion, but if there aren't really major issues here. We just want them to get the clean audits, which they are quite close to, if they resolve these issues of the IT and, control of revenue management. Okay, so, Honorable Kaula, are you back? Okay, so thank you very much, Ms. Bengo and your team. And I think we can see the good effects of the new broom that is there also, your CFO, and we can release you. Thank you very much, IDFC. Let's move on to...
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and Honorable members. Thank you and goodbye.
Goodbye. Let's go to Ithala Soc Limited. Who is here from Ithala Soc, Cabo?
Good afternoon, Honorable Chair, Dr. Tsani Vilagazi here. Yes, I'm also joined by our Chair, Mr. Pumzi Pupuma, as well as our Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Mohamed Kafur.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Vilakazi. Then let's just get you to take the oath of affirmation as well as your CFO, and then we'll just go into your presentation.
I, Dr. Tulani Vilagazi, solemnly swear and affirm that the evidence that I shall give here shall be the whole truth, but nothing the truth. Mohammed, through your chair.
Yes, CFO.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chair. Good afternoon, members and fellow colleagues. I, Mohammed Hanif Ghafoor, swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God. Thank you.
Thank you. So when you go into your presentation, we want to say that in terms of your financial statements, you have received a clear, unqualified for the past 3 years. In terms of your annual performance report, the same. So your results have remained the same. Where you've regressed has been in the area of compliance with legislation and specifically around strategic planning and performance management. You've got a repeat finding on expenditure management, and in terms of asset management, consequence, revenue, liability, etc., you are clear, and your results have remained consistent. There are no issues with those. So it's just around strategic planning and performance management and expenditure management. And in terms of the root causes, what the AG has said is that you have been slow to ensure effective implementation of supply chain management to prevent irregular expenditure. There have been slow responses to implement the controls around loans and advances. You require effective oversight by the board to ensure compliance with Treasury regulations on the preparation of the shareholders' compact. There's unsupported software vacancies within the IT division, and the delayed projects prevented the implementation of your IT controls. There are vacancies at key management. So these are some of the issues that have been identified by the AG. Let me hand over to you. I'm sure you will be covering these in your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Once again, good afternoon to the honorable members and also our colleagues, to our chair. Yes, indeed, our presentation is a very short one. Just in terms of how we're going to present, our CFO will take us And then there are elements in the presentation towards the end where, as the CEO, I'll come back, and then at some point our chair might make a statement in terms of invitation from the chair. Safe to say, Madam Chair, obviously we do have the unqualified audit opinion, and correctly so. Over the last 3 years, which is almost my full tenure, we have really maintained to achieve that unqualified audit opinion towards the clean. Only these 2 items this year in terms of our expenditure item as well as the shareholders compact prevented us from achieving a clean audit. But nevertheless, we are making progress, as you could see, in terms of the other areas, in terms of where we are. So we are confident that with your support and also with the oversight being provided by the board, that we're making steady progress, and we shall at some point have a clean audit, which is ideal. Through you, Madam Chair, if I can ask Mr. Mohammed to take over as our CFO. By the way, Madam Chair and members, this year the Reserve Bank approved the appointment of Mr. Mohammed Kafur as our Chief Financial Officer. As you know, that this is one of the key positions that had been vacant for the last 2 years. So we've been able to achieve that particular aspect. Through you, Madam Chair, over to you, Mohammed. Thank you.
CFO. Thank you, CEO. CFO.
Thank you, Chair. I want to highlight what the CEO has just mentioned in terms of, as well as what you have mentioned in terms of us obtaining unqualified audit opinion. The areas of non-compliance were on, as mentioned, was the irregular expenditure, as well as the us not preparing and concluding the shareholders compact before the commencement of the financial year. As you also highlighted, we receive clean audits in various areas, except for those 2 areas that we just mentioned. In terms of the irregular expenditure, just to note that Ithala did not incur any fruitless and wasteful expenditure in the current financial year, as well as the previous financial year. Also, the irregular expenditure that has been incurred in this current financial year were not did not result in any financial losses to the entity. These were mainly as a result of expired contracts that we continued to use. Just to note, those contracts were for essential services. If we had to cancel those contracts, that would have resulted in disruption in our banking services and offerings to our clients. So we had to continue with those contracts. The main cause of that, as you highlighted, was poor contract management. Just to note, in the 2021 or towards the latter parts of the 2021 financial year, Ithala established a fully fledged SCM department. When that department, we brought in a very experienced SCM manager, who's then started to look at contract management and put together all the various contracts. It did take a while because it was a newly established department. Previously, this was managed at the parent company, the IDFC. So that took a while to put together. And once we started getting the contracts in place, maintaining a contract register, and having business or the various business units take ownership of these contracts took a while, and some of those then spilled over into the 2023. So just to note, in the 2022 financial year, you have noted that we have incurred 18.5 million worth of irregular expenditure, and again, those were all as a result of expired contracts. In the current financial year, we've incurred 4.5 million, and majority of that 4.5 million were some of those expired contracts that spilled over into the 2020 from the 2022 into the 2023 financial year. Just noted that we have put quite a bit of focus in that area. We want to make sure that we are compliant in this area. We have regularized all expired contracts. we have put in place a detailed contract management process, which includes, as I mentioned, maintaining a detailed contract register with expiry dates. We now start the SCM process in terms of all these expiries 6 months prior to the expiry of these contracts to ensure that we don't incur any irregular expenditure going forward. In terms of the second non-compliance finding that we raised, which prevented us from receiving a clean audit, was the shareholders' compact. There was various negotiations or discussions on the shareholders' compact, which we did initially present to the IDFC board, but they had lots of queries, and that went quite a few times back and forth, and as a result, we couldn't meet the compliance requirements in terms of those dates. However, we have now put in place, and we will ensure that going forward that our shareholders' compact is concluded prior to the commencement of the financial year. Then the other item that has been highlighted in the audit report, and I think you mentioned it earlier, was the material uncertainty relating to Ithala as a going concern. As the committee members probably know, that Ithala is currently operating under a banking license exemption that is due to expire on the 15th of December 2023. And part of the conditions, there were several conditions that were placed in that exemption for Ithala to comply with, which included us applying for a banking license by 30th of June 2023. I can confirm that we have submitted a banking license application in terms of Section 12 of the Banks Act. The other requirement was for the entity to procure through either provincial government or national government 2 irrevocable and unconditional guarantees to protect depositors' interests. One of those have been secured. The other is a huge or large amount that the PA is requesting, which I think the CEO will speak to a bit later, that we haven't yet secured, but Provincial Treasury is assisting us to try and secure some guarantee to satisfy the Prudential Authority. The other requirements were that Ithala maintain a fit and proper board of directors. We can confirm that we are currently compliant with the Banks Act and directives in terms of the fit and proper board of directors. That is after my appointment, which is also an executive director on the board of Ithala. In terms of the performance standards, there were 2 performance standards that Ithala is required to maintain, which is having a capital adequacy of 15% of the risk-weighted assets, or 250,000, whichever is the higher, and having a leverage ratio of 4%. I can confirm that at financial year end and currently we are in compliance with that. At financial year end, our capital adequacy ratio was 18.13%, and our leverage ratio is at 12%, and we're currently still maintaining those financial performance standards. Thank you, Chair. That's from my side. I'll just ask to see if he wants to add on anything.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. I think we can maybe just in terms of the going concern, I think our CFO has covered much on it. Just to say, maybe one of the things that at the moment we are awaiting is the outcome of our Section 12 application. So the Reserve Bank has actually started that process to assess, but at the same time, also as a mitigation, because of the expiry of the exemption in December, the board mandated management to also apply for an additional exemption in case it takes longer for the Reserve Bank to process our application, so that then in December there is no gap where we don't have a legal instrument to operate. Other than that, Chair, we can turn this to you, but our Chair is also here just for further comments if need be.
Thanks, Dr. Vilakazi. Chairperson, do you want to add anything? Chairperson of the board.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Chair, and the members of the committee. Just two things. Firstly, one of the burning issues was the appointment of the chair, and on the 6th of December, I was appointed to chair the Ithala Soccer Limited Board. So that compliance issue was actually addressed. One of the burning platform for us is the fact that the provincial government is not allowed to own a bank in terms of the FMAA, which is the Financial Matters Amendment Act. And the IDFC is busy with addressing that issue, how we can actually circumvent that. And it is very important for the success of the license that we have applied. Secondly, in terms of the shareholders' compact, the main cause of the discrepancy or the non-compliant was the fact that Ithala Soc Limited is regulated by the Prudential Authority. So our shareholders' compact need to go through them, and they actually were clauses that they were not happy, and they proposed some changes. And instead of us going back to the IDFC, who owns the contract, we tried and attempted to change it, which caused a lot of delays. Now that has been signed, and it has actually the issues that were raised were sent to IDFC on a memo, so that the next one will incorporate those. Otherwise, yes, we have applied for a new exemption altogether, just in case. And we are also setting up an appointment to go and see the deputy governor with regard to the Ithala issues together with the IDFC chair. That's all from my side, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Here again, I think as the key issues have been addressed, and I think the burning one, of course, is the issue of the license, that, you know, and the going concern. Those are the two. Okay. Colleagues, I can see the hand of Honorable Taylor. Anybody else? Okay, Honorable Taylor.
Thanks, Chair. Greetings to the board of Ithala and colleagues of Ithala. Mine, Chair, I think this one is happy with the way that we are given answers, Chair, but under materials certainties that were raised by the AG, I think the CFO has given us some few answers. Before I get to that, Chair, I just need to find out. There's a statement that is said where they are saying under contract management that they are contracts that they could not cancel, even though they had expired. I did not get an answer, Chair, on why did we wait for so long to renew those contracts? And there's a statement that says some of those contracts we could not cancel because it will be detrimental to the organization. What type of contracts are those that you can't deal with canceling them? You would rather break the law and continue with an illegal contract and say they were detrimental. What contracts are those? And then when he gives his responses for material certainties, he speaks about the banking license exemption and everything that has been done. One is happy with that. But the large amount, I still we haven't been given a proper explanation on the second part of the amounts that is needed to guarantee the banking license. How far are we with that? How much is needed? how far is Ithala from securing that? I do understand that he says that provincial treasury is assisting them with that process, but I think as Scopa, we could be given better responses than the ones that are a bit vague. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Honourable Cele. You see the issue of the banking license. I think there's some foresight in actually applying for the interim one, because if you've not covered your second major guarantee and you say that that's a large amount, then chances are your license expires in December 2023. So you don't have much time. And whilst you're getting support from Treasury, there's that. There's also the issue of a bank being owned by a province, which is actually not part of the legislation. So that has to be worked through as well. So I think Honourable Cele is raising key issues, and we also would need some feedback in terms of timeframes. Colleagues, I can't see any other hands, so I'm going to hand over to the entity.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. If I may just ask our CFO just to cover the aspects on the type of contracts and maybe just give some example, and then I'll take the other two questions. Thank you.
Through you, Chair. So the type of contracts were banking services contracts. So we currently have a in-house banking system as well as a hosted banking system that is hosted by a third party. As well as then we are using a lot of ATMs that require service providers to maintain those ATMs. So those are contracts that cannot be easily cancelled or the SCM process not followed. So that's why, as indicated, from now on, we do have a contract management system in place where we're starting this process very early on to address those previous shortfalls that we had, where we are starting the process later, the contracts expire, and then we try and regularize those or enter into new contracts or extend the contracts. So the type of contracts that we're mentioning are like essential banking services contracts, like your one of them is, as I said, the hosting system that hosts the client's debit cards, and that's hosted by a third party. Then your ATMs, where we are renting a few of the ATMs, as well as we have ownership of a few ATMs, but those needs to be maintained, and only certain service providers can maintain those, as well as anything relating to IT and cell phone type of bankings as well, that we cannot just move away to a new service provider. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair, if I may just add to that, just maybe to clarify for Honourable Cele. For instance, the hosting services contract is a contract that is there's only one player in the market in South Africa who, apart from Ithala, is also managing 16 other banking institutions. Way back in 2002, the national payment system was deregulated in such a way that you could have other players other than the Reserve Bank operating the platform. So Ithala's contract since for quite some time has been part of that service that's provided at the national level. And you recall that just prior to our tenure here, around 2018, when the bank tried to actually come out of that contract, that threatened the existence of Ithala, because without that hosting contract that is bolted onto the system at the national payment system, would not be able to provide banking services. Nevertheless, as the CFO has confirmed, we have now regularized that contract in terms of its tenor and weight ends and so on. So this is what it is not like evergreen contracts. It's not that, but it's contracts that are really, if you were going to unbundle them, the bank would not be able to operate. And just like the other 15 other banks in South Africa that are using the same platform. So that's what was giving us a challenge there. If I may proceed to the next question around the banking license, particularly the question around the second guarantee. Yes, indeed, we submitted the application. So the application is a two-stage process. So the first process is Section 12, where a prospective bank seeks authorization from the Prudential Authority to apply to be a bank. So it's not a one instance. Now, in the Section 12, you actually almost show and tell what you have and so on. In terms of the submission, particularly around the issues that pertain to the shareholding as well as some levels of capital that would be availed, there is an intent document that was submitted as part of the application that came from IDFC and Edtea as the group as to what are the plans. And one of the plans, obviously, to circumvent the Financial Matters Amendment Act is the creation of a holding company, an interposed company. That process is actually underpinned under Section 55 of the Banks Act. So IDFC as well as Edtea have to go through Section 55, which is about restructuring of the holding entity before they can then come before the Reserve Bank to apply as a holding entity of a bank. So the second stage of the application is Section 16. Now, once we jump the loop of authorization in Section 16, Section 12, you go to Section 16, which is now registering as a bank. And that's where, Honorable Chair, members, you now need to show that the guarantees that you spoke about, the structures that you spoke about, that you can pass a bona fides test and a litmus test, that they're going to test these things, the shareholders that have come in, and a whole lot of other things that were mentioned in Section 12, that they can be proven before you are now allowed to be registered as a bank. So we're in the first phase, but correctly so, guided by our board, we were conscious of the fact that if we are going to maybe hit December without the outcome of the authorization application, it would be important then to make sure that the transitional period is not disturbed. So that's the first part. The second one, on the guarantee, obviously, regarding the guarantee, it's about 2 billion. It's 75 cents for every 1 rand of the depositors' funds. And normally, that guarantee would be covered under what is called the corporate deposit insurance company in South Africa. And most of the banks, by the way, are not providing a guarantees of their depositors. I think this was just a condition that was part and parcel of the exemption notice, which, Madam Chair, I'm sure you're aware now that the province actually did take the Prudential Authority to court in terms of some of these conditions. But nevertheless, that condition can only be materialized and be put in place when the interposed company is put in place. Secondly, the dilution of the shares that are held by IDFC would then create an avenue for an investor to come on board or underwriters that could provide in that aspect. Safe to say also, we have also, as Ithala, been invited by the corporate deposit insurance company that's only launching 1st of April next year. But as the legislation stands, Ithala would not be able to benefit from that depositors insurance, which the rest of the banks could. And the only way we can benefit there is actually when we secure our authorization application. So that's the aspect of the guarantee. There were negotiations between National Treasury as well as our Treasury, but there are challenges obviously with the fiscus. But there are other avenues also that the shareholders of Ithala Soc Limited have actually exploring in terms of attracting other people or other investors, obviously within governance and proper state assets in terms of injection of that. So that's the aspect of our response. I know my chair is also, his hand is up. Thank you.
Yes, Chairperson of the board.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to add on another aspect which would come up next year if it's not addressed now, the issue of vacancies within the IT department. I think we need to tell the committee that this was deliberate because of the strain on fiscus, in the sense that as the board, we took a decision that we contract with IT shops so that while we need people that are actually high skilled in IT, we actually rent them from these IT shops that we have got contract when we want to use them. And while we are actually looking for people that are actually willing to join the IT, because of the specialist IT skills that we require, and we are operating under an exemption notice that is expiring very soon, there is no professional that is actually prepared to jump from where he have got a secure job to join Ithala, who is actually facing that particular risk of an exemption that is expiring. And also, we been given a directive by the Prudential Authority that we de-hub all our IT activities from IDFC. And as a result, these shops, these IT shops, when you are de-hubbing, you take something away from the support of the IDFC, and then we have to actually find a place where to put it and the person that needs support that. And that is too costly. So we also sign contracts with IT shops so that they support us through the transition period. I thought I needed to address that because next year, again, the issue of IT vacancies might come up, and we have not addressed it now. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that clarification, Chairperson. Colleagues, I think in terms of the license issue, we're going to have to wait. They are now in stage 2, and there are other matters together with that. Chairperson has explained to us about the vacancies, which they are using, addressing by way of contract, not permanent posts. I think the contracts have been explained to some extent, Honourable Taylor. Are there any other issues that you would want to raise, colleagues?
Chairperson.
Who is that, please?
Honourable Kulu.
Yes, Honourable Kulu.
I just wanted to add on to the Ithala license. One, I just wanted to appreciate to get such a report because at times it felt like there's no willingness to push for this license. But at least after getting this report, at least one is quite happy. But let's hope that maybe by December or around November before we close, if we can get an updated report on the matter of licensing. Thank you, Chairperson.
Yes, thanks, Honourable Kulu. We will do that with the resolutions that we formulated. We'll request an update, and we'll see what the feedback is. I must caution everyone, though, this issue of the license has been around with us for a long time. It's a difficult process, so let's see. But I think that we appreciate the steps that have been and are being taken, and we look forward to a positive outcome. Are there any other matters, colleagues, in relation to Ithala SOC? Okay, we'd also like to see who is that?
It's Tele. We are fine for
Tele.
No, I'm saying to you, we are fine, Chair, with your summary. Okay,
then we'd like to thank the entity. Thank you very much, Mr. Pupuma, Dr. Vilakazi, and the team for your presentation. We'd like these things cleared, but I think obviously the issue of the license is something to be with us for some time, and we will await the feedback. So thank you very much. We can release you.
Our appreciation, Madam Chair and members. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Chair. Goodbye.
Bye.
Colleagues, the next and the last entity we are seeing today is the KZN Tourism Authority. Who is here from there? Pindile, I think I saw you.
Yes. Good afternoon, Honorable Chair and honorable members. My name is Thembiso Madlala. I'm the chairperson of the board. With me is Pindile Makwakwa, our COO, who's been commissioned by the board to make this presentation. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Madlala, chairperson of the board. Before we go into that presentation, can we ask that the CEO and whoever is going to speak take the oath or affirmation?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon and good afternoon to the members. I, Pindile Makwakwa, do hereby swear to speak the truth and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Thanks, Pindile. Is there anybody else who will speak, or is it just you?
It's just me, Chair.
Okay. So before you go into your presentation, in terms of the KZN Tourism Authority, you have received an unqualified audit, as you have for the last 3 years, and that is good. In terms of your annual performance report, your program 3 was audited and it's fine. Your program 4 was fine. So there were no issues around that. In terms of compliance with the legislation, you've remained the same relating to your annual financial statements, performance reports, and annual reports. Where there's been a regression has been in expenditure management and procurement and contract management. We also note the improvement in consequence management. So according to the AG, the overall root cause of these findings around expenditure management and procurement and contract management are the inadequate monitoring, right, of compliance with legislative requirements. And the AG has made a set of recommendations. So in terms of that, we would then hand over to you to do your presentation. There is a provision for doubtful debt, which was VAT-related, that the AG has raised. And we know that you are in the process of deregistering your VAT. There's been irregular expenditure, a decline in it, but of 600,000, where proper tender processes were not followed. And there were also issues around competitive bidding. So if you can take us through your responses to these things.
Thank you, Chair. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can, Pindile.
Thank you. I will go straight into it, Chair. I think the summary, I will jump, Chair, and get straight into the matters for discussion. First being procurement and contract management. The first matter, Chair, is bid that was not advertised for a minimum period of 21 days. The process that was followed internally, Chair, was a request was sent to deviate the bid to less than 21 days. But what actually ended up happening was the advertisement was for 20 days. So we were 1 day short. And on inspection by the AG's office, they found that the reason for deviating was not valid. We tried to make our case that this was just 1 day short, but could not win that argument. And so that remained a finding. The second one is non-compliance with preferential procurement regulations. This one relates to the updated SCM policy. When the regulations were issued, we then commenced internally with the process of updating our SCM policy. We did experience some delays in the finalization of the policy. So the 524,000 that you see there are RFQs that were actually actioned without necessarily being aligned to the new regulations that found us with that particular finding. The third one is payment to suppliers exceeding approved contract value. This is just over 75,000. And Chair, in this instance, this was internal audit services that were procured by the entity.
and their contract came to an end, and there was an aspect of the audit that needed to be finalized, and we do recognize that this was an internal control deficiency. And of course, I will speak later in terms of our audit improvement plan and tightened internal controls. And then the fourth one is quotes not advertised for a prescribed minimum period that pertains to one quote of just under 70,000 that was advertised for 3 days instead of 4 days. So, Chair, you'd take notice that a trend is being missing by a day, which is still not enough excuse. And so, in terms of controls, again, I will talk about what controls are in place in that regard. And then we are talking the next slide on the audit improvement plan. So in terms of the matter of not having done the 21 days rather, but did 20 days. So what we are ensuring here, the matter is resolved and timeframes for advertising of every bid is monitored closely and checked by supply chain management before issuing of the actual advertisement. So, of course, we're talking about tenders here, and we are ensuring that the minimum that is met of days is 21 days and no less. Only urgent cases are described in the instruction note 3 of 21-22 that will require deviation. But in terms of how we conduct our bids internally, we do not really have urgent bids as such, and so we do abide by the 21 days. The second one, which is non-compliance with preferential procurement regulations, we then subsequent to us. So part of the delays in the finalization of our policy was issues of interpretation of the regulations. There was widespread confusion around some aspects of the regulations that had changed in terms of our measurements. And so we then reached out to Treasury to help us in training staff. And so there was training of our micro and senior management. There was further training of our BSc, BEC, and BAC members so that everyone was aligned with the new regulations. And particularly also budget controllers were involved in the process. So when we actually do the terms of reference, staff is empowered around what the requirements are for each, whether it's an RFQ or a tender. And then the next one, even though it's recorded as not resolved, we are still detailing exactly what processes we are taking to make sure that our controls are tightened. And so since the findings, there has not been any other deviation. So the one on the payment exceeding the contract value, the contract management tracking tools have been developed and implemented by SCM, as well as the project managers, making provision for compliance elements. Payment processing is done and approved in accordance with the checklist, and monthly reporting to executive management on compliance is carried out. So those are the controls, additional controls that we've put in place. And then in regards to the quotes, the SM policy has been amended to include the requisite number of days for advertisement of RFQs. And there's a stringent reviews of quotations with a checklist that is updated to include the number of days of advertisement that is currently being implemented. All RFQs issued out subsequent to this finding are in compliance with the minimum number of days for advertisement. Maybe just as an addition here, not contained in this report, Chair, is that we've gone further with our RFQs, that we actually now also advertise all our RFQs on our website. So there's also a wider scope in terms of reaching out to potential bidders, because some of the issues was us struggling in terms of getting the requisite number of quotations. So we'd probably sometimes go twice, only get 2 quotations. By the third time, there would be that panic over, let's say we are hosting an event that we are running out of time. And so we'd have that challenge of the reduced dates. And part of the remedial action is that we are actually making sure that it goes out wider to the wider public to pitch RFQs. The next one is supplier in service of the state. This matter has been resolved. We found here, Chair, that on more than one occasion, AG has made a finding, and when we get the details of the supplier, you'd find it's as an example, person who's a board member, who's actually a director, not an executive director in another entity that is a government entity at a municipal level, and would have done business with that entity, but somehow they are recorded as a member of state, rather as an employee of the state. But however, we are ensuring that we check the CSD report for directors employed by the state before an order is issued. Annual financial statement discrepancies, this was resolved as well. Internal audit and CFO reviewed and corrected the financial statements, as well as invoices not recorded in the correct financial period. Adjustment was effected in this regard for an invoice that was received after reporting. The last one, Chair, the last slide speaks to the condonation of irregular expenditure. Of course, there is a process of condonation request for the current irregular expenditure of the year under review, but there is also older matters, and we did start a process internally as part of our condonation because we applied for condonation. Some matters were brought back by Treasury to say they needed more information around the investigation being conducted, consequence management before they review our applications for condonation. And so some of the matters, our internal audit service provider did an audit, and upon their finding, the finding was not conclusive on the matters that were being audited, and so this has necessitated that the process go into a forensic investigation. I must indicate that this is still pending an audit and risk committee submission and tabling rather, and a recommendation to the board for approval, because of course forensic audits have to be approved at the level of the board, and then they will be effected accordingly. And upon receiving results of that forensic audit, we will effect the necessary consequence management and table for condonation. That concludes my presentation, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Pindile. And I think it is quite clear. I'm glad to see that there has been action taken, and I must point out that you were, you would have had a clean audit except for the two areas of expenditure management and procurement and contract management. So I'm glad to see that you're addressing it, and hopefully there will not be a recurrence. I can see the issues are being dealt with seriously, which is what we expect. Colleagues, can I open to you for any matters that you wish to raise? I think the entity has addressed the issue satisfactorily, colleagues. Nobody is saying anything.
Thank you.
All right. In that case, colleagues, if there are no issues, we can then thank the entity. Hopefully, we won't get a recurrence, and you'll get a clean audit in the next audit cycle, and we won't see you because of that. In terms of the rationalization, I don't even want to ask.